games. Of course, you guys know what it's like, but that was nervy. Yeah.
The OTB Brief, online every morning from 7 a.m. on offtheball.com, the Go Loud app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right. Welcome along to OTB AM on this, it's a pretty sunny Sunday morning where I am. Owen Shane, a very good morning to you.
Very nice, isn't it, actually? This is one of the eerie elements to all of what we've been experiencing over the past couple of days. The weather has been pretty nice. It feels like we're in the middle of a heat wave or something like that. A March tinted heat wave, I should say. It's not exactly roasting just yet.
Yeah, it's obviously in stark contrast to the general mood nationally and globally as well. Obviously, as we're facing into the seriousness of the pandemic at the minute. We said last Friday that even when we veer away from that topic today, we're thinking of it, and we're thinking of you, and we are going to veer away from it today at times for sure. We have a crappy quiz coming up later on. You can expect that will be a little bit of levity, hopefully, in your Friday morning as well. But we are thinking of it, and we're thinking of you. So come with us on the journey over the next couple of hours, and do keep in contact with us as well. We'd love to hear from you wherever it is you are this morning on this bright and hopefully sunny Friday morning, wherever it is you are. We're about a week into this thing now. It was I was at the studio certainly last Friday morning. I've been pretty much based at home since that, and I've been getting pretty green fingered. It has to be said. The garden has had absolutely no attention at any point over the last couple of years, and I took into it with a top of the range lawnmower over the last couple of days, which may well have been a 60 quid Woody's job. That had smoke coming out of it at one point, but we got through it. And we're all the better for it. What have you been doing to fill your time?
I do have a couple of follow-up questions on the gardening, which we'll get back to in just a moment. But
the slot a bit later on, yeah.
For me, it's actually just been a process of staying relatively sane over the last few days. I know there's plenty of experts out there who will give you actual advice on what to do and how to keep your mind in good shape. But for me, it's actually just been getting outside, because if you look at how Ireland is currently fixed in comparison to a few other countries, we're still very fortunate at the moment to still be allowed to go outside, to still be allowed to go for a walk, keep your distance from everybody, of course, do a little nice, very obvious walk around people if you happen to walk by them. But other than that, get your fresh air, get out for a little while, limiting news intake to certain quick hits, because I found myself certainly watching the same things over and over again. I'm not sure if that's been the case for you. There's been some amazing journalism done over the last couple of weeks, but a lot of the same information is being regurgitated. And I personally find that if you're soaking in all of that stuff for a total of, say, 2-3 hours in one day, which was certainly the case around last weekend, it's just not good for you. It's not good for your mental health, that's for sure. So the 24-hour news channels are certainly a bit of a danger to all of us. Switch it over, watch something else, throw on maybe 6-1, get your Irish news for an hour or whatever, and be smarter in terms of what you're taking in. So I haven't really got to the stage where I'm able to be like, right, okay, now how do I turn this into a positive? I've just been trying to avoid all the negatives so far. But a good clean of the house would probably be not a bad idea. Our garden is in terrible shape, so that wouldn't be a bad shot either, which is why I have so many follow-up questions. And maybe I would listen to a gardening podcast if, say, the Dadcast wanted to branch out.
I think that there are, my knowledge, if I was to show you a shot of the garden on, you wouldn't be all that impressed, but I could show you the before and after, which would, in that context, I looked like Peter O'Mahony with my gardening skills. But yeah, we have a couple of small kids here as well, so it actually was a great thing that however stir crazy we're going, and definitely, like you were saying, certainly I found last weekend where we were all very much getting to grips with what was going on, was definitely very tough going. But yeah, keeping them occupied is probably the name of the game around here. So yeah, the garden, actually, that was the main reason really for doing it, that it was another alternative for them to have something else to distract themselves with. But it is weird, yeah, even that sort of thing, like you were saying, going out for the walk, and, where, traditionally you'd have been going out and you'd be sort of like stopping and chatting to people, certainly around the locality where I'm at here, And do you know what? I find there's more of that now. Like, went for a walk on St. Paddy's Day and found myself getting into a conversation with nearly every single person I met about how they were doing, what they were doing to fill their time. Like, they were very... I found this thing for all the negatives of it, and there are so many of them, grim negatives of it, that actually there was so much... the community spirit, the positivity, the everybody trying to pick each other up thing is what I found about it. That it turns out actually, as human beings, we can be quite supportive under pretty grim circumstances as they are at the minute.
Definitely. And I don't think, thankfully, we've been in too many positions as a country to actually figure out what we're made of. This is what we do find out, and I think the science has been pretty good so far. It's interesting when you're going to get out and about. You do see a lot of people getting out because I think people are taking that advice as well that's out there, just to kind of stretch the legs, clear the mind a small bit. But it's just struck me that cycling is probably the best, most valuable hobby to have right now.
If only you could cycle on, you'd be...
Yeah, well, exactly. If I'd get back my bike from that triathlon last summer, unfortunately, which was clearly the stupidest thing I've ever done, because unless, of course, you're going out with like a cycling team, which I presume have been kind of disbanded temporarily for the time being. Most people kind of do it on their own or do it in twos, and they're in tandem sort of thing. And it's definitely something where you can keep your distance from everybody, but still get a good degree of exercise in. And it's one of the regular hobbies that you can keep up. That and running, it seems, are the two things that people are able to keep up at the moment. So I really regret getting rid of my bike right now.
Do you know the other thing that has been in the back of my mind? People who watch us regularly will be very aware that we were doing the Swim for a Mile challenge, obviously, before all this kicked off, which had to come to a bit of a grinding halt, which is such a shame on so many different levels that we were over halfway through and everybody was cooking along very nicely. But it's been in the back of my mind that obviously at any point you could probably jump into the sea and be absolutely fine about it. I don't know if you've been thinking that's something you're up for.
Have you seen me swim?
I think you would be able for that now. I don't see the issue with that now for you.
I could probably dip my toes into the sea. I'm not sure about actually getting... if there's a nice, safe camp spot of water, which is up to chest height or something like that, I might take a dip. I'm not going to lie, it is something that's entered my head, but then I quickly realised my limitations as a swimmer and thought to myself, well, there's enough danger in the world right now without needing some emergency services to be distracted to come and save some Aegis who's swimming in the sea. So that was my thought process behind that.
Yeah, you're nothing if not thoughtful on fair play. One last thing on it, the absence obviously of live sport, and it's such a weird place to be where there isn't, like, you can't turn on the Friday night football or the Monday night football or whatever else. Many things that we look at obviously from one week to the next. Melbourne are playing Canberra as we speak. I don't want to be enticing people off to another channel, but I've been watching a little bit of it before we came on air this morning. I don't know if you saw any of it, but it's obviously the Australian A-League behind closed doors. Standard, not great. It was like 2-1 after 12 minutes. I was like, I missed the absence of goals, but this is just taking the piss now. And also weird, like, I don't think things are as bad in Australia necessarily as they are certainly around Europe. But it's just weird. Like, the players obviously in such close proximity to each other, they seem to have made some kind of a half-hearted effort with the coaching staff, with the social distancing, with the chairs and stuff, but not really. Like, they are very much cheek by jowl. The mascot is going around in his gear. It's all a bit weird.
Yeah, I that doesn't sit overly easy with me. I'm not going to lie. The whole Australian kind of pushing on with sport. Like, we had Nicholas Walsh on yesterday, who works with the AFL and the Coaches Association, and he was saying that it's kind of full steam ahead behind closed doors for the time being, which does not make sense. Like, when you get into this piece that's been done with John Obi Mikel during our paper section this morning, and he just makes the very valid point that, like, why are sports people being encouraged to go out in front of empty stadiums, not shake hands, practice social distancing, and then go out and execute an Australian rules tackle on somebody? Like, that just makes zero sense whatsoever. It's kind of doing things in a half-hearted fashion in one little element of sport. Like, there are travel restrictions in Australia. People trying to get into the country can't really get into the country. There are 2 AFLW players, obviously, who've had to come home to Ireland. It just doesn't make sense that you can instigate that sort of movement in terms of clamping down on the virus and then allow the A-League and the AFL to go ahead. It's baffling, really. It's obviously great for sports fans down there who can show on the television tonight, whatever time it is in Australia, and actually get a bit of action. But I would imagine after this weekend, it might be the last thing they get for a while.
Yeah, I think that I'd seen a newsline this morning that Wuhan has had its first day of no new reported cases of the virus since the outbreak of it. Now, they're a long way down the track from where any of us in Europe are at. They've been locked down since the middle of January. But I think actually thinking about it, when we start to get into that sort of space where the heat, and I'm sure it's not just yet there may have been no reported cases, but I'm sure they've a lot of a backlog to deal with. I think when we get into that environment where the heat has come off the health service and we are in a position to be able to cope with new cases, that's where the trickle we can start to at least have that conversation about that tap being turning on that trickle a small bit in terms of a return to normality, whether it be that sport behind closed doors or whatever sort of other levels of normalcy we can return to. But I do think it's at that point we can really start to talk about what sport might look like in that brave new world.
Definitely. And I think that there are specific sporting organisations around Ireland who will have a role to play at that moment as well. And I think the GEA will be one of them. I think obviously all Irish rugby was cancelled yesterday. I think at the local level, rugby will have a part to play. And the League of Ireland will actually have a part to play in that as well, where you have these localised events. I think probably the GEA might be the first one to get up and running, where county boards may actually be able to start reorganising club fixtures, because they will be in a certain area. We will have the county by county breakdowns, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it's sooner rather than later that reverses, and maybe in 2, 3, 4 months it does start to cool down, and there will be a data line for a certain county that says, right, we are in the clear here, and games may be able to be reorganised. But it's what's been really encouraging, and I think this kind of goes back to what I said at the start, is that we don't know our generation how we react in a crisis, or what our reaction is going to be like when our backs are against the wall. The same goes for our generation of sports administrators. Now, I know a lot of sports administrators are probably a generation older than a lot of us, but I must say that by and large, they've reacted extremely well, especially when it comes to the sports administrators in this country, that they've never had to face this sort of crisis before. And it's like water off a duck's back. Whatever you need, we will do when it comes to helping the health service. Any little thing that they can do, or like taking government advice immediately and calling off fixtures and things like that, has been really encouraging for the most part. So I would say there obviously have been a few exceptions, but I think when you look at the GEA in particular over the last couple of days, they played a blinder.
Yeah, definitely. And we are good under a crisis, it turns out. We've had lots of examples of that over the last few days. The government is particularly good in a crisis. Not great outside of it, obviously, as we might have seen over the last while, but we'll keep a watching brief on that. We do want to hear from you as well this morning. We have had the first comment of the morning, as he's pointed out himself, from Kevin Callahan. He says he's in good morning from Central Europe, lads. Kevin, could you not be a bit more specific than that? You'd never find somebody the likes of Owen Sheehan there sort of telling you good morning from South Ireland. You'd be knowing exactly where it is he's at. So you could be endeavour to be a little bit more specific. Get in touch with us again, tell us where you're at, and we'd be delighted to give you that proper shout out. And also a comment in from Jonathan Kennedy on Facebook from New York, saying that he stayed up until 3:30 every night, Owen, waiting for OTB cribs of Owen's gaff. I think we effectively promised the viewers this, if I'm not mistaken, last Friday.
We certainly did, Adrian, and I certainly forgot. Johnny Kennedy will know well that we're not going to do an MTV cribs of my house on this crappy webcam here. We are going to get a full film crew in when everything is safe, when it's okay for people to call over to people's houses again and do this thing properly. Mine will be up there with the Mariah Carey version of MTV cribs. It'll be just a situation where people will be talking about it for decades and decades to come. So we're not going to waste it all this morning, basically, is my answer to that question. That's
Kevin. Or Johnny, you've just been yarred, is what's happened there, I'm afraid. We might come back to it a bit down the line. And Kevin was back in touch today. He's in Slovakia. So good morning to you, Kevin. And hope you're well on this Friday morning. And we do want to hear from everybody else as well. You can get in touch with us on all the usual channels on social. So hit us up there with a comment over the course of the morning. Let us know where it is you're at and what your best recommendations for your downtime that you've had over the last week is, and we'll pass those on to our viewers and our listeners this morning, wherever it is that you're consuming this. You can also get us on WhatsApp 0879 180 180, and we'd be delighted to hear from you at any point over the course of the morning as well. Here's a little bit of a flavour before we get into the meat and drink of the show of what's going on in the world of live sport, and so much as it is on this Friday. All 19 clubs of the SSE Electricity League are going to meet with the FAI today. Obviously, this is following the association's what they called a productive meeting yesterday with the National League Executive Committee. It's on hold, obviously, football indefinitely in the country, and expected that more clubs could follow the lead of Sligo Rovers, who were forced to lay off all staff and players on a temporary basis until the league can resume. It's believed that the Premier League clubs were told that they have to give back €820 million in TV revenue if the current season was declared null and void. English professional football obviously at a standstill. And the date that's been set on that is April the 30th, at the very earliest, following the meeting of clubs yesterday. So that's a serious bill that they're now facing into as well. And rugby, the domestic season, one of the first of these that I've heard was confirmed to have been brought to a halt with the immediate effect last night. The RFU saying that all cups are going to be shared by finalists who had in fact made it that far. There isn't going to be any promotion or relegation throughout the 5 divisions in the men's AIL, and they've also committed to that expansion that had been promised to the women's AIL from next season. Pro 14 organisers, meanwhile, have suspended the season indefinitely. This year's grand final, set for Cardiff in June, has also now been cancelled. League organisers laid on several criteria to be met before play can resume, and evening meetings now banned in racing. So this week's meeting at Dundalk has been moved to the afternoon, and the first of an 8-race card will go to post there at 1:30. So that is where we're at on the world of that. Here's what's coming up for you over the course of the next hour and 3/4. We're with you until about 9:30 or thereabouts. We're going to tell you what's happening across the sports pages in just a few minutes' time. The sports newspapers this morning. That will be an interesting challenge for everybody, I presume, over the next few weeks and months. We're going to hear from Tommy Walsh. He was on the show making sense of everything, as he always does, with Nathan last night. So we'll hear some of the highlights of Tommy's chat with Nathan coming your way at around about 8 o'clock. And just after that, we'll be joined live on the line from France, I think, by Ronan O'Gara, who we haven't spoken to since all this madness broke out. And I'm sure it's been an interesting week, 10 days, 2 weeks, I'm sure, in the life of a head coach in professional rugby as well, and the numerous challenges that he will have had to face. So we'll get the thoughts of Ronan for you just after 8 o'clock there. Sports news just after 8:30 this morning will be a recap and an update on those stories that we just gave you. Ray Connellan, the Westmeath footballer, also been in conversation with Will O'Callaghan. We'll bring you a little piece of that just about 8:40 or thereabouts. Owen, you'll be delighted to know, we mentioned sort of what he'd been doing to fill his time, and he came up with some guff about trying to get into cycling and that kind of thing. But I can assure you that actually what he's really been doing is getting into his power rankings. This is the sort of random list that he makes up every now and then of where teams around the country and are faring in terms of the All-Ireland Championship. I mean, he makes it up as he goes along. You'll appreciate that. You've seen it before. And I would assume that we're very much headed in the same direction for today's instalment. That's coming your way at about 9:15. And then just after 9 o'clock, Owen, again, has been busy drafting up one of his infamous crappy quizzes. So it'll be myself, Nathan, and Tommy on that you're going to put through our paces a bit later.
Yeah, it's like pre-season for the crappy quiz now. I need to ease myself back into it because we are going to hit full throttle with the crappy quiz, I dare say, over the next few weeks. Any questions, as I tweeted out yesterday, get in touch with us because postcards are not the safest method of communication at the moment.
No, good shout. Okay, it is time for the papers.
OTB AM.
So we're going to kick things off here, as we always do, with a bit of a look. There's lots of good stuff on offtheball.com. There's plenty of you visiting in your numbers over the last week or 10 days as well. So it is your one-stop shop for everything that's all latest developments, whether it be sport and cancellations or the features that we've been doing, and many more of those to come as well. But the one story we'll take a little bit of a look, dip into this morning on offtheball.com. It's the main splash story there this morning. That news that the RFU have confirmed that the club rugby season has ended. They've drawn a halt to it. We've given you the details of exactly their plans around that and how they intend to divvy up the cups and abandon relegation and promotion or anything like that, and encouragingly commit to the expansion of the women's AIL for next season. But it is one of the first that I've heard where they've actually, there's been a lot of conversation, and we'll get into some of the details about the Premier League in just a moment, but a lot of conversation about kicking dates back and loose dates that are clearly, everybody knows, a little bit in the short term, that everybody knows is not really going to happen. Is one of the first ones that I've heard they've actually pulled the plug. Yeah,
and I guess there's probably a bit of more of an ease with them to do it. There are kind of less restrictions, and I use the word restriction in a kind of a strange way there, but if you compare it to, say, like the Premier League, where it seems increasingly tough for them to actually put the pin in all of this because there's just so much unknowing about it all. And certainly I'd be in the camp that it would be good to finish this thing at some point, even if it is at the end of this calendar year. I just think that getting something done is more important than starting something afresh and getting that done. I think finishing what you started is important, but if you can see that you're close to the end of the season and the financial implications of it wouldn't be too detrimental to your own coffers, then by all means cancelling it is definitely the best way to go. The Premier League are obviously hamstrung because there is so much external cash coming into the organisation. So it's a bit of a different situation, I think, on that one.
Yeah, we've had Damien in touch, who's been saying that he's self-isolating in Bristol. Good morning to you, Damien. Hope all is well with you and yours and that you're safe and well. Please keep the show going every day. It's a lifesaver, he says. And Sports for Business has been in touch as well. Good morning to you, Rob. Hope all is good with you. Morning, lads. Great to see you keeping it going. And sure, if the crappy quiz is back, then we know that everything is going to be okay. And that's definitely a sentiment that we're very happy to endorse and get behind. And it is coming away a little bit later on. We're going to move on to the Irish Daily Sun, let you know what's happening there. This is a shutout. Prem's fans fan ban could last into next season, writes Charlie Wyatt here. Certain that the Premier League season, he says, is finished behind closed doors, if at all, and next season could start without fans present to continue to tackle the spread, of course. Not really any huge surprise, really, because it's the uncertainty of everything. So it is very difficult in that environment to make any great pronouncements of certainty in terms of when or where fans are going to return to live sport. Also, the news that Manchester United has promised £1 million to ensure that its 3,000 casual matchday staff are paid. So that's really good news for them. They're going to see that out, it seems, until for the remainder of the season. And exclusive as well from Owen Cowser here. League of Ireland aims at June return. League of Ireland clubs are going to today discuss a June 19th restart for a 2020 season. So it's interesting, and it's obviously far enough down the track that maybe they can have that conversation in a way that will always be what we wait and see, but it's certainly a positive development. I know that obviously League of Ireland clubs are under such massive pressure, maybe the biggest pressure of most of our professional sport outlets in this country, given the nature of their business and the need to have fans in the door and for that engagement. So we shall see, but they're looking at June.
The Irish Times this morning, Adrian leads with Jerry Thornley's piece here that some clarity on season is to be expected shortly. A Pro 14 final is cancelled as fixtures suspended indefinitely. The lead photographs, though, are from an empty shopping aisle, and also Skellig Michael, Matt Williams, writing about that, saying, from the sublime to the simply stupid, what a difference a week has made. Trying to navigate the barren rugby landscape as things change so quickly. He's obviously made a trip to the Skelligs and then has done up a list of items that he needs to get done throughout the next few weeks. One of them is enrolling in a yoga course because his hips need that work at the moment, he says. And Sport Ireland CEO Tracy calls for Olympics to be postponed. So John Tracy, the latest voice in growing calls for IOC to push the games back. You'd imagine the clamour for that to happen at this point is just going to become far too overbearing for the Olympics to stay in their current July start date.
The Irish Daily Mirror on this Friday morning, we'll win it in extra time. Big splash in the back about the Premier League promising to finish the season no matter how long it takes. Acceptance that dozens of games could be held behind closed doors, writes John Cross there, so you can pick up much more detail on that. And Paul O'Hare as well, writing about the very sad situation we brought you a little bit earlier on there in relation to Sligo Rovers and the fact that they've had to temporarily let all staff, players, etc. go to try and deal with the crisis. That's the Irish Daily Mirror this morning.
The Irish Daily Star is fight to the finish. Premier League chiefs vow to complete season. So this is with regards to yesterday's meeting that they are going to get this thing done, whether it is behind closed doors or not. You've got Derek Foley writing there that the IRFU write off season, and Enda help League of Ireland if you can afford it. So Enda Stevens hopes other Irish stars will dig deep to help League of Ireland players during a cash crisis. And he joined James McLean yesterday in donating 25 grand to a fund run by league bosses and the players' union here. So it's helping domestic personnel who experience financial problems due to a suspension of wages. You've got your tips for Dundalk there, of course, going ahead behind closed doors, and a Sean Kavanagh column. Will there now be a mass exodus of players thinking inter-county football is too much? It's an interesting thought. I don't think there will be an exodus anywhere in particular because this whole world is going through this thing, but it'll certainly be a situation now where inter-county footballers and hurlers will be sitting on their hands a lot more than they're used to, and might spark a period of reflection for a few of them.
Yeah, I'm sure about that, and I'm sure there's consequences right across the world of sport and beyond that we haven't even considered just yet that will unfold over the next few months. In the Guardian this morning, resumption on hold. Leagues delay a restart until the 30th of April, but they do want to finish the season. The 30th of April seems incredibly close as a deadline to be setting, and maybe it's just something that they're putting in place as a placeholder that they'll revisit in the coming weeks. And also a story there that we'll probably get into in a couple of minutes' time about John Obi Mikel that you've been having a look at, Owen, refusing to play for his Turkish club. Amid the crisis, he's very much of the idea that, amid all this stuff, and being on the pitch and being around his teammates and staff around the club is not a place that he wants to be. That's the Guardian.
The London Times this morning leads with coronavirus could delay next season. So we've been mentioning that already. It's Martin Ziegler and Matt Lawton reporting on that meeting yesterday that the ban on English football is going to be extended from April 3rd to April 30th in response to escalating coronavirus pandemic. And when it will resume, they hope, and hope is the strong word there, they hope it'll happen in May at some point. Behind closed doors is the likelihood. Sports bodies in bailout talks, writes Matt Lawton as well. High-level talks opening between British sports main funding bodies and the government amid concerns that the coronavirus crisis will leave sports organisations facing financial ruin. And Whittingham dies at age 35. This is the very sad news yesterday that Peter Whittingham died at the age of 35. Former Cardiff City midfielder had been in critical condition in hospital with head injuries suffered after a fall 12 days earlier.
And I know with the Irish Daily Mail to have a look at there on screen as well. I actually don't have it in front of me, but I'll give you a bit of a flavour of what's going on. But there you can check it out on screen. That's the Irish news for you, I should say, this morning. That's that.
The back page of the Racing Post then is a photograph of the Vitality Stadium behind locked gates. The wait goes on, reads the headline. English football off until at least April 30th.
One of the last ones we'll give you a bit of a look at this morning is the Irish Daily Mail. This is interesting stuff, primarily obviously in relation to it's an article from Shane McGrath. Irish chief says Olympics must be postponed. This is obviously in front of all the local organisers, the local organising committees and the IOC as well, saying that plans go ahead. Very bullish stuff from them during the week, but interesting to see that you touched on it a bit earlier on. John Tracy, Hamish Adams, the CEO of Olympics Ireland, has been out as well, and he says that it's not responsible. He hasn't gone as far as to use the word irresponsible, but saying it's not responsible of local organising bodies in Japan and the IOC to press ahead regardless of the pandemic. So it's interesting stuff and very much obviously going against the tide of what's been said elsewhere. That's the Irish Daily Mail for you this morning. And I think that's it on the newspapers, if I'm right. Owen,
Yeah. All wrapped up there, Adrian. That's my lot for you this morning. And we appear to have lost Adrian there.
Are we back? Are we back?
Oh, we've got you back. We've got you back.
We're back.
You're operating at 4G.
I was thinking about that the other day about the how 5G is going to be a little bit slower than we might have expected it coming down the track. So yeah, look, we're back and hopefully broadcasting in living colour as well. I think that's it from the newspaper zone, if I'm right.
That's our lot. Absolutely, they're all the back pages.
Yeah, good stuff. Canty's been in touch to say crappy quiz. Oh, here's a good shout. Crappy quiz reeling in the ears.
And how does he? What is this? Like we pick a year and we do a quiz based on that year.
He's given no detail other than, I suppose, then to encourage us to use our own interpretation of it. But that'd be very much what I'm thinking. What do you reckon? I think
that's an absolutely standing shout. Actually, that would actually solve so many issues. Like to anybody who doesn't know, the hard work and graft that goes into putting together the crappy quiz, the idea generation part of it can sometimes be the most taxing. And that texter there has certainly given me ideas now for however long we want, because certainly we could get whatever a few thousand editions out of it. There have been a few thousand years after all, if we can go back into prehistory. But so let's do that. Let's do a really in the ears crappy quiz from next week. Let's do it.
Yeah, prehistory version, to be fair, would probably be more accurate than a lot of the questions and answers that you're writing up. Shane Finnegan says, what would happen Saracens if the season is pulled? I mean, I don't know. I'm less concerned about it, I have to say. Go on, yeah.
Nobody's thinking about Saracens in this whole thing. I'm glad they finally been mentioned. Poor Saracens, the situation needs to be mentioned. It's a good question. I actually don't know. Do we just does everything get forgotten about? Even if you look at, say, the Manchester City ban for next season, if Champions League next season was to be disrupted, they're obviously in the clear then for the following year and all that. So I don't know. If you're getting banned at the moment, it's obviously way down the priority list for all these sporting organisations. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on the Saracens front, certainly, because that was definitely in a bit of limbo before we got into the Six Nations part of the rugby calendar.
Yeah, I presume that they're obviously at that point having deep conversations with the organising bodies in a way that those committees and unions and judiciaries, I presume, in a sporting sense, are at this point, listen, will you go away? We'll come back to you when there's less pressing things at hand. So see how that unfolds over the next while. Morning from Sydney, says Kieran. How are you getting on, Kieran? Very good morning. Delighted to have you with us this morning. I do want to hear from you, no matter where it is you're at this morning. Do let us know where it is you are and what it is you're up to, and any recommendations you have that you'd like us to pass on to. We've been doing morning Zumba here with the two kids every morning on YouTube. It's a fantastic start to the day. A bit of an unusual one, I won't lie to you. If I would felt that I would have been saying that a couple of weeks ago, it would have sounded very weird, but probably in the light of everything that's going on, it's not a bad thing to do. I jump on YouTube, trying a bit of Zumba, and that's going to get your morning up to the best possible start. Although for you, that would probably be 5 a.m. So, maybe post-show.
You're is this spot where we're going to engage in now a bit of Zumba? There might be a bit of Zumba-related activity in the Crappy Quiz actually today, because we need to keep people moving. We need to keep people fit. Promises,
right. Stay with us on. We'll be back to you in a few minutes' time. It is OTBAM on this Friday morning. It's just gone 8 o'clock. Wherever it is you're at this morning, we're delighted to have you with us, and we do want to hear from you. If you've got any comments that you want to get into us, hit us up on the usual social channels. You can get us on WhatsApp as well, 087 180 180, and we do want to hear from you, whether it's a text message, voicemail, voice note, or a video message, any of that. We do want to hear from you this morning. So delighted to have you with us, and do get in contact. Plenty more to come. We've Ronan O'Gara going to be on the line very shortly with the Crappy Quiz to come, and plenty more besides as well. But you are watching OTBAM, still lots more to come. Raj will be joining us on the line from France next, but there's the glorious return of the Crappy Quiz a bit later on, and straight after these we're going to be hearing from Tommy Welsh.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist?
So I know the likes of Griezmann's big into his fashion.
You wanted a lot. One question he actually asked me was, could he make his studs light up when he runs?
Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists.
Yeah, the Nike Mercurials from 1998. If you just show that boot to an entire generation of people, and they just get instantly nostalgic and remember everything from that era.
The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past, and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Here at OTB, we want to help flatten the curve. We want to slow down the spread. So make sure to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. So here's 20 seconds of Giles Gold. When John stops talking, you're done.
Well, I think he should keep his mouth shut and have more respect for the opposition when he plays against them. And look at himself. If he was such a great player and was able to do all the things that he's talking to other people not doing, he wouldn't be on the bench. He'd be out there playing. Obviously, after the Untitled disaster, it was thrust on Bobby. And there was an awful lot of pressure on Bobby. He was carrying the team, and he handled himself brilliantly, and he played unbelievable.
And remember, avoid touching your face, cough or sneeze into your elbow, and protect those most vulnerable. So please stay safe from everybody here at Off the Ball.
OTB AM.
Absolutely. I think they're mad to get away from us as well.
Oh my God.
But we went up. We actually had a good Paddy's Day, in fairness. Usually you're training or you have a match or you have the Paddy's Day Club finals you might tee into, but we went up to, I forget the exact name, I think our Waterford friends might know the exact name, but the Cumshee Con, I think, mountains. They're up near the Mahon Falls, and you it's about an hour up to this beautiful lake. And now we had the kids with us, so we kind of stopped there. We brought the hot chocolate and a few scones, and we kind of pigged out there for a half an hour of that. But it was a fabulous walk. And I suppose you have to try and look at other ways of living, and it was nice, different way of spending Paddy's Day, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the interesting parts of this as time goes on, as to what we learn from all of this, and appreciating spending this time with our children and having to spend that time with our children a little bit differently than we would have previously, when they're probably get out and play outside, whereas now we need to figure things out for ourselves for once.
Yeah, and like I'll always go back to it was one of the best interviews I ever heard, was between Off the Ball and Ger Loughnane. It was a good number of years ago now. I've listened to it a few times, but Loughnane is kind of he knows most things about nearly everything, really. And I remember that time, I think possibly could have been Joe was interviewing him, and he was talking about that time he had cancer, and he was up, it probably changed his whole life, but he just said he immersed himself in the hospital life. He didn't think about why did he get such an illness at such a time. He said, no, this is after happening to me, and I'll just, whatever they asked me to do in the hospital, whatever the nurses asked me to do, I will take it. And off he went. And I thought it was a great outlook. And, I've tried to, I suppose, think along them lines no matter what happens in your life. And I suppose this is one of them times for most people in Ireland. And you could probably get down on yourself and start thinking, what if this didn't happen? I could have a nice life, or, maybe possibly after losing my job, and I could still have a job and looking forward to holidays. But I think Ger Loughnane's way of looking at life, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And everyone will just, I suppose, try and think along them lines. It might be positive, it might be beneficial to people.
Yeah, look, everybody's situation is different as well. As you say, the economic side of this is going to be very tough on an awful lot of people. Yeah. But people talk of this being a bit of a war. I suppose for a lot of people, we need to remember we're not in the trenches here. We've been asked to stay at home with our children. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose it's the unknown, really, isn't it, Nathan? That's the thing, really. But hopefully, like Ireland seem to be after putting in, good measures and very early. So you'd be hoping that it might stop the impact, and maybe we might recover quicker than is expected. What are the Tullaroan under-8s going to be doing then for the next few months? Because I thought Brian O'Driscoll was on Friday, and I think he touched on this brilliantly about the role that sports plays in our lives, from sitting down of an evening to watch a brilliant Champions League game to, I think, for anybody who plays sport or who have children who play sport, from, I know my life would be Friday night soccer training, Saturday morning GA training, Sunday morning soccer match, and the lads absolutely live for that. Like, that little part of your life is gone now, and I know you love that part as well.
Yeah, I think even for your own mind to do a small bit is no harm. So like our players will do a bit of running. They'll have a few pucks if they get a chance. They're being given them a few things to do on their own and get out. So they're very aware of their spatial, how much space they're allowed between people and stuff like that. And like, we've just told them that they have to be really smart in themselves, even in their general day-to-day stuff, on what to do, because it isn't even about them. There's more people affected by this, so you have to think of that in every single thing you're doing, that it affects the wider community and people that you're in touch with. So not alone doing a bit of training, but anything you do outside, you have to be very aware of it. And like, people are very worried, like people that have to leave work and they're not sure where the next check is going to come and stuff like that. That is worrying times, but I think the first thing is we have to make sure that everybody's healthy. I think that's very important. And also, you have to think as well, is there probably is elderly people out there that, could do with a call and could do to make sure that everything's okay, to make sure that they have messages in and stuff like that. I just think it's important we realise what's going on around us, as well as, like, obviously a lot of us will take a space and try and stay at home and do X, Y, and Z. But I think it's also important to just maybe think of people who can't really take care of themselves, or who wouldn't be as mobile as certain people. We have to just be aware of all that stuff as well. And I think that's important, and just important to be very sensible now. I'm glad maybe after the weekend we realised that gatherings in pubs or whatever isn't on. And listen, this could take a small bit of time, and we just have to be prepared the best we can for that, and just be as smart as we can between doing all the things the HSE have asked us to do. I think it's very important to do what they've asked us to do. Listen, I have to be totally honest. I'm actually not thinking about games or what could have been or what will be. Listen, that will return to normal, please God, if we get this side of things right. And I think the more vigilant we are now, and like I see this as a big challenge to us all to be the best we can be here. Games and all that stuff will come in the future, please God, but we've got to try and make sure that as many people as we can are safe and are healthy. And I think that's a big thing for us now. So to be totally honest with you, Shane, like what comes down the line will come down the line. I just want to make sure that everybody just does the best that they can do now. And you know what, in a number of weeks or whatever the story is, and we can get over this without as many people being in trouble. That's the most important thing in my head right now. Well, I think, yeah, certain things maybe like that. Certain things like people being out in pubs and having a great time. I think the penny dropped of how serious it is. And like the next 2 or 3 weeks is obviously going to be vital because things will ramp up a lot and probably a lot more people will get it, you know. So we just need to be a small bit smarter. And it isn't going to be easy probably staying home and staying out of people's environment. I think that's going to be harder. But listen, you can pick up the phone and talk to people. You can video talk to people. You can Skype. You can do whatever. There's a lot of ways you can keep in touch, and I think that's important too that you do. I actually think it's important to fill your day as much as you possibly can. What I mean by that is just have a little plan of doing X, Y, and Z throughout your day if you can. Walk, exercise, maybe getting time to read a book, then another time to movie and stuff like that. That you're just not bored out of your tree all day. Just plan a bit of time and use the time, you know. So it's a different time, so it is for us all. But I just think it's important to keep that mind active if you can. I'd watch a lot of telly, so I would, and believe it or not. I'd watch movies there, so I would a lot of the time. I'm watching back a load of different GA games, believe it or not. So I am. It just gives me a bit of time, but I'm not spending all my day doing that. Like there will be part of my day where you will get up, go for a walk, will do a certain amount of exercise, then I will look at the games or whatever. So it will. Then I'll take time where I'm just ringing people for a while. So I'm trying to break up my day in different segments just to keep it busy and stuff like that, and doing a few bits of food prep around the house, which she's finding very funny, I think. Because I would never have done as much as I should have probably. So I just think it's important that you do actually break up your day with different bits and pieces. I think that's vital. No, I'm watching everything. Like it's given me a chance to watch different. I'd watch other teams that have played games. You're always looking for different bits and pieces. So I suppose this is just giving me a bit of time to sit down and do stuff like that. As you said, to watch the telly a bit. I'm trying not to. Like I will spend a small bit of time tuning into what's happening day by day outside, but I'm not letting it dictate my day. Because like if you really wanted to, you'd read so many different bits and pieces and about the virus, and I think it is important maybe to just keep in connection, but I won't spend my whole day looking at it. Yeah, Shane, listen, take care, and to everyone out there, the same thing. Just mind yourselves and do the things right, and please God, we'll all be back soon together. All right.
Yeah, fair play. Davy Fitz in conversation with Shane Hannon there during the week. Before that, you heard from Tommy Welch. You can check out those full pieces up on offtheball.com, and plenty more of that good stuff to come over the next weeks and months, no doubt, as well. Right, time to turn to rugby of sorts. Anyway, Ronan O'Gara, I believe you're standing by. Good morning to you.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
All right. How are you getting on?
Yeah, we're a week into lockdown, so very different week, and very strange, but yeah, the place is dead. It's very quiet and not much going on, but I think after Macron's address to the people on Tuesday night, maybe the following day, a little bit slow, but Wednesday, Thursday, I think people have realised that the key to all of this really is that hopefully you don't put yourself in a position to get the virus. That seems to be the takeaway message, because it's. I have obviously the Irish media channels and I have the French channels here as well. So it's very different between the two countries. I think the policies that are going on. So it's interesting, but I think for people back in Ireland or at home, realise that you got to take this incredibly serious. I think try not to see people is the key message.
Yeah, it has been interesting to watch, and I was doing a bit of a read last night about what was happening in France, and like you say, Macron came out, was it last weekend, and actually appealed to people, and they were shutting down schools at that point. They moved to shut down cafes, bars, theatres, etc., and the French public sort of were not that interested, it seemed initially anyway.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, and I suppose it's very different in the fact that Paris is like a country in itself. There's different nearly rules there, and there's just such masses of people that it's difficult. But down in La Rochelle, it's probably a quieter place. It's more like I suppose the equivalent of, in Dublin would be similar to Paris and then the rest of the country, and it's the same in France. But now the message has been taken on board by people here. Everything is out of bounds. So I live nearly on a beach, and the beach is out of bounds even for going for walks. It's basically, if you go for a little walk, you'll hear sirens behind you, and the kind of two guys in motorbikes will jump off and kind of go on, have your piece of paper, because you have to have a piece of paper which everywhere you go, to, describing what the reason for your leaving your house is. So basically you have the right to leave to go and get your essentials in the shop, or you're kind of allowed 20 minutes of exercise a day, but that's within a 2-kilometre radius of your house. And is it essential for work that you're leaving? So it's particularly in the last 72 hours, I think there's been a big difference. And people over here kind of are, I think, seems to be that just give yourselves and the rest of the people the best chance of not getting this disease. So I suppose I was probably a little bit looser in my rules, being brought up in Cork and it'll be all grand on the day kind of attitude, but over here they do it differently.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think we were all of that attitude, weren't we, over the last weeks, even maybe a month or more, where it started to creep a bit closer to our own front door. And initially I think we were sort of the view that this is something that's happening somewhere else, in a way that previous epidemics have gone, and then suddenly it's very real and it's at your front door. In
very,
that
very
context,
real
Ron,
in the fact that, sorry, any of us can get it, isn't it? I was struggling with that and saying, well, you have to be in contact with someone, or you can, you're kind of the mentality, you'd be unlucky to get this, but you're not. That's not actually, I think, what the science behind it is the fact that, if you touch something on a hard surface and that can remain for 2 days, you can pick up the virus. So there is an awful lot you can do, I think, to limit your chances. But obviously then there are cases where you can be exceptionally unlucky and you can pick up the virus. But I think give yourself the best chance. Just stay in and around your family and continue to wash your hands on a basis that you've never done before in your life.
What's your tip for the itchy skin? I'm getting awful doses of it. Dry skin. What sort of creams can you recommend?
I'm not a doctor, Adrian, as you know. But yeah, it's been you do a dad cast, don't you? I'd say they're going to go to a whole new level after this week. Honestly, like,
we've been pathetic. We haven't done one. We haven't done one at all since it happened. But I think we have a plan for maybe one this afternoon.
But this is peak time. This is exactly when you need to do it. The sales will be through the roof. It's I've been refereeing matches out in the back garden, but the back garden is tiny and there's scrubs and there's thorns and the kids' face are they're torn off each other, and there's my daughter's getting involved in it. It's just not what should be done. And then you have to go, not alone washing the hands, but it's basically just in and out of the shower 3 times. But the handy way for us was to throw them into the sea before that, even though it was freezing, get a cheap, quick wash. But the beach is out of bounds, so everything is a very, very surreal. But it's a great, simple life at the minute, and it'll probably get more and more challenging, because the rumours here are that it's probably going to be, we're on lockdown for 14 days. We're halfway through that nearly, but there's talk of another month of it coming. But with the seriousness of the situation, I think the whole thing is basically you have to try and avoid getting it, because if you get it, you're putting yourself at big risk. It doesn't matter what age you are. So the message has to hit you between the eyes, and you need to cop yourself on and give yourself and your family the opportunity not to get this.
Yeah, I don't mind admitting sort of last weekend, certainly at this end, when you put all those things into the melting pot, I found it a particularly tough couple of days last weekend. And then you sort of start to come through it, and like you're saying, you get into a bit of a routine and things start to get back to normalcy to some degree, new norm, I suppose. How have you found it all yourself personally with the kids and trying to keep everything on track and I suppose to be that, to be that strong person?
Yeah, it is very challenging mentally. I think there's no doubt about that. I suppose it gives us an insight too into what our wives do when they're school holidays. It's a tough slog, and it's easiest for me to escape to rugby and get my satisfaction out of that. But I think it's been rewarding in other terms. It gives greater opportunity to get a bit of time with the kids, and real decent time, in the fact that there's, you don't have that excuse of I fancy a coffee. It's all out of bounds, so it's lockdown, it's in the house, it's putting a bit of structure on the day. I suppose it's challenging because with 5 our kind of rules are broken, because after the 4th kid it was kind of just let us get some sleep, let's have 7 in the bed, it doesn't matter. There was none of this kind of sticking to the Gina Ford models, is it? I think there's some experts out there about sleep patterns for kids, but we never went down that route, and at the end of it was just, come on in, guys, we just need to sleep. So you do whatever you can to survive. But this week it's been, I think from a rugby point of view, in France it was all very new for me, in the fact that we had a final planning day on Friday where the feedback was we'd probably go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we were in a little bit of shock, kind of going, how do we manage a professional team on a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday, and just 3 mornings a week was the feedback we were allowed. And then so we got a call at 4 o'clock that day saying, no, change of plan, it's complete lockdown. So we were all put on the chômage, which is on the kind of so the state look after your employment. So with that, they're very strict rules. So essentially, our sporting premises, our training centre is out of bounds. You're not allowed to go near the place, and you're not allowed enter the building, because technically you're unemployed at the minute from your daily brief. So that takes a little bit of getting your head around, and the fact that, we were told clean out our lockers, clean out everything. So, that meeting point, or that the club has gone out of our lives, which is a big, big void. And that was probably the place, obviously, you go to, not alone for work, but even if there was a day off for the players, the management and stuff would go there. So there's, there's no idea when we will resume, if we will resume at all. So much is up in the air. The kind of, why would you even have the conversation? Because I suppose the goalposts are continuously moving. So, from a sporting point of view, it really, I suppose, not unsettles you, but puts you in a position that you have never experienced before. But I must admit, I probably. It gives you a great time to reflect, and I think I'm never a man for looking back, but I think with this pause you have to take stock of where you are, and then essentially how you want to be remembered. So it's for me, the timing was great, because it was probably from the minute I finished playing, I went straight into rugby, and this is the first pause I've had since 2013, and you can make the best of it now, because it's a situation that is going to affect the world, and the world is going to be very different from now on.
When you're sitting in those, I was going to say quiet moments, but the scene you've just described, probably not all that quiet for most of the day. How are you reflecting on your life, taking stock? You must have had moments over the last few days of, I suppose, emotion and incredible pride of what you've achieved up to this point.
No, I didn't actually, Adrian. It was probably hard on myself. You're right, but it's good that you say that, because that's very important that we do that as well. That we acknowledge good days. I suppose.
Can I ask you, what you're saying? You haven't sort of reflected with what was your conclusions, if you've come to any?
I think the conclusion was that how passionate I am about what I do. Potentially, I don't look upon it as a job or work, and obviously the situation now with the virus and how many good people are going to be affected, how many businesses are going to be affected, the amount of people losing jobs, it gives you a taste of kind of how families need to income to put bread and butter on the table for their loved ones, and all of a sudden with a pandemic like this, it changes everything. It has nothing really to do with their own industry. It's something that I suppose has made everyone sit up and take stock, like that for a so-called virus, how everything can be so different, and how so much can be taken away from people so quickly. So that would be, I suppose, thinking of other people predominantly. I'm okay over here in the fact that the rugby will come back, but you kind of realise that there are so many other people that have difficult challenges. So you try and put yourself in their position, and you say, how can I help, or how can we do this better, or how can you make people feel good? Because that's what coaching for me is I got to do with. You got to got the boys playing for you. They got to have a cause, and they have to have a vision, and it's up to me to show them that way. But it's similar in this period, how people need a carrot at the end of these few weeks to say that the good days will come back, and I'm sure they will. But it's when you're in the trenches, you need something to look out for. It can't all be gloom, because people then will go back socialising, and they'll go back into their little pockets of meeting up. But I think for the minute you got to just stay apart, but you have to stay incredibly mentally tough, because it's a situation none of us are used to, and it's hard. But the easy thing is to give up, but you can't give up. You've got to make sure that you don't get this. And I think for me over here, in fact, maybe coaching is an isolated job anyway. But I think you've got to just, for the next month, you just got to stay apart from people. You can't meet people. Then hopefully we'll have this thing countered, and we'll be very happy with what we've done. But the reverse situation of that is that you don't change your habits, or you don't change your behaviours, and you continue to engage in social behaviour, because in Ireland the lockdown isn't on, as far as I'm concerned, and there's parks open, and there's plenty of opportunities to do things. But I think that would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. You've got to stick to yourself for the next 4 weeks essentially.
Yeah, and as we have this chat, a shaft of light comes into my room here, Ronan. I don't take that a message from the skies. It must be tough. You talk about obviously the scene here, and I think that the messages begin to drop maybe over the last few days with all the generations in terms of that key part of it, sort of keeping to yourself and keeping away from people. It must be tough for you to be away from home.
Yeah, I've been on the road a while now, so I'm used to it. I kind of get it. I kind of get stuck into the challenge I'm with. I've been fortunate in this game to go to play all my rugby as in one club, and then go to Racing, and then go to Crusaders, then go to La Rochelle. So it has absolutely flown, and that's the great thing about getting a little bit of unforced time where you never expected it. You appreciate these things, but it also recharges your hunger for the next journey ahead. So yeah, of course you miss home, but the key thing, it's easier for me now because I don't have friends around me. It's for you at home that's going to be more challenging, because the easy thing is to just kind of, I'll just pop over to this guy's house, or we'll go down here and we'll have a coffee and we'll meet up. But the risks multiply obviously with the amount of people together. So I think the key takeaway message is that you've got to stay apart. But yeah, of course, you'd love to be back in Cork, and you'd love to be relaxing and but that's all ahead too, Adrian. That those days will come.
Yeah, we'll party hard when it's all done. It does strike me as well that I know you're aware of it because you were tweeting about it during the week. It's almost a year to the day, in fact, that you and I was watching back last night, spoke in the aftermath of those tragic shootings in Christchurch that killed 51 people. It was awful tragedy, obviously, and it's tough stuff here again that goes far beyond the world of sport and the distraction of it. But you've touched on it there, but it is, we spoke at that time about actually how, and Jack McCaffrey, I'm sure there are comments that you paid heed to the last few months, yes, making very much the same point, that sport is actually, it's so much that cliche that gets thrown out that actually sport doesn't matter in times like these, and actually like having it back, or the anticipation of having it back at some point in whatever shape down the track in 2, 3, 4, 5 months time, like it is vitally important to have it back at some stage.
Absolutely, and that's what people are getting to realise, I suppose, how much joy, the necessity sport brings to all our lives. I think it's absolutely crucial. It's the biggest thing we've seen in the last 7 days. How many people are interested in sport? So many. It's only when you take it away, you see here, probably last week when we were out more often, and you go to a cafe and a lot of the elderly men would be giving out yards that the rugby is cancelled, absolutely disgusted, and all the young kids. But it gives so much joy, I think, and so much purpose to people's life, and that's the massive positive that's come out of all this. I think it would be such a different world if there was no sport, and you can see that, and that's, I suppose, what excites us for a month's time, hopefully, or 2 months' time, or 3 months, or 6 months' time, whenever it is. But it's just it's unthinkable, a world without sport. Really, I think that's been one of the key messages I've taken from the last 7 days, and but it's also an opportunity, I suppose, for you to, with this pause, kind of go, wow, how lucky am I to be in this position, to be running a team in France and getting so much satisfaction out of it, and having all these great challenges, and then all the great rugby at home in Ireland as well. But yeah, sport is absolutely crucial. It's deep in our soul, no doubt about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I was actually going to ask you about sort of any other recommendations. We were talking to Owen a bit earlier on. He's out. He's thinking about trying to get out and do a bit of cycling. I've been knee deep in the gardening. I was going to ask you about like Netflix recommendations or what you can recommend, but actually thinking about it, we're going to have so many weeks ahead, Ronan, where we'll be doing Ronan O'Gara's top 5 guide to Netflix. So we might press pause on that conversation.
There's a brilliant book. I'm reading a brilliant book, Pebbles of Perception. How a few good choices make all the difference. It's a guy who grew up in Cork, in Mallow, and now he's living in Dalkey. I think Lawrence Ederson, Laurence, Lawrence Anderson, Endersen. Great book. Maybe it's just because I'm at this stage of my coaching journey, but it's a bit of a life book. But it's highly recommended to people if they're looking for something to stimulate them over the next few weeks.
What's it about?
Basically, it's kind of a little bit of a roadmap in terms of, I think, as you get older, you get wiser, but this book kind of wants to make you wiser at a young age. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's a Cork guy's journey, and he's kind of well read, and he's highly intelligent, and he's basically sought out a lot of good people that he's met, and he's kind of come up with a bit of a plan and a bit of advice. But it's a fascinating book. For me, it was the best book I've read anyway.
That's quite the recommendation. Listen, stay safe, stay well. Great to chat with you. Look after yourself.
See you, Adrian. Cheers.
Good luck. Ronan O'Gara on the line there from La Rochelle. Live this morning, and plenty of love in for Ronan as well, as there always is, particularly at this time. Lots of comments coming in relation to Isil Cody. Good morning to you, Isil. I hope you're safe and well as well, wherever it is you're at this morning at OTBAM. Regular commenter saying that Ronan O'Gara making her smile in lockdown. He'll be fine, as he doesn't have friends. So that's Isil's take on things this morning, and plenty of other comments coming in that we'll bring to you before we are done this morning at 9:30. We still have plenty more to come, by the way. We've the crappy quiz the lockdown edition of the Crappy Quiz coming your way in just a little bit. We're going to tell you about a couple of the stories that we've picked out from the back pages this morning as well. Myself and Owen have had a bit of a dip on those, so all of that to come. But it is 8:34 on this Friday morning. I hope all is well with you wherever it is that you're at this morning. We've had plenty of comments from people around the world this morning: Slovakia, Sydney, New York, and plenty more besides within the confines of the island too. So wherever it is you're at this morning, please do get in contact with us on whatever platform it is you're watching, or you can hit us up on WhatsApp as well. You can hit us on 0879 180 180. Right, all of that to come, but we're going to be back with our GA Power Rankings as well, by the way. I know they're called Power Rankings. They're effectively a list that Owen has plucked out of his eyeballs, and that's coming your way for 2020 in just a few moments' time. Straight after a Midland special. What more would you want? This morning, Will O'Callaghan caught up with the Westmeath football star Ray Connellan yesterday, and here's how it went.
But as you move lower down the leagues then, for the 92 teams that are there, a lot of these, like League of Ireland teams, are really going to struggle. Is this a stage where those big clubs, these wealthy clubs, need to step up and support those teams lower down, or is that expecting too much from those clubs?
I think they should do something, Nathan. My opinion is that they won't. I mean, don't forget the Premier League clubs have formed the Premier League not to be decent to the clubs in the lower divisions. You know, it's 92 was when they formed the Premier League, and the reason they did that was because the television money was being paid to the 92 clubs, and their idea was, well, why should we, the Premier clubs or the big clubs, pay to the lower divisions? But of course, in those days, it was a lot to the lower divisions and the big clubs, because they were producing more players, in my opinion, from the second, third, and fourth division. What was then, Nathan? So they did deserve the money. Whereas I can't see them being suddenly generous to the second, third, and fourth division clubs of that time now. I just don't see it, Nathan. I think they're too greedy, and they're just worried about themselves. He was a bit stocky in that. I didn't think he was going to make it. To be honest, I didn't think he was going to make it. He didn't look very mobile, but he trained and trained and trained, and he became the fittest lad in our club. He was so versatile. Actually, it went against him in many ways, Nathan, because he never had a regular position in the team. He could play right back, he could play left back, he could play centre back, he could play in midfield. He could play in all those positions. So when I hear anybody, and a lot of people say to me, John, I'll tell you the Leeds team, and they can tell me the Leeds team, and Paul Madeley is never in it.
Right.
You know, but he played a lot of matches, Nate, but because he played in different positions, and he was a terrific lad. You know, he never made a fuss. I used to have a joke. I got on very well with him. I have a joke. I'd say, Paul, if I crack a joke and I get a grin from you, it's just as good as getting a big laugh from anybody else.
Right.
And he would just have a little smile on his face. No bother, no fuss, nothing. He was a terrific lad and a terrific player. So I was very lucky. I joined it when I was 22, and I was fairly young myself at the time, 22. And Don had taken over. I think he'd been on manager for a couple of years at that time. And he had Bobby Collins there, who was a great Scottish player. And he was 10 years older than me. And he set the trend, if that's the right word, at Leeds. He was a great player. He played for the team. He demanded that of the players around him, the young players. Norman Hunter, Billy Bremner, Terry Cooper. These were all young lads coming into the team. You know, Bobby Collins was a great example. Yeah. Training-wise, in the club, in the dressing room, and demanded everything on the pitch of himself and people around him. So that spirit was there from the time I got there. And what happened then, obviously we all got older and we got better players in that were there and became a great team. But with that bond and fighting for each other and playing for each other never left us until obviously we had the Clough situation when Don left. So it was a pleasure to play with those lads. You know, they were great players and a great attitude.
Yeah, that's John Giles in conversation with Nathan on the show last night. You can check out that full piece with John up on offtheball.com as well to get all the details there. Owen, you're back with us?
I am indeed. What is the crack?
All good. You go make a nice little coffee for yourself?
I was going to, and then I got too engaged in what Ronan was saying. Very interesting stuff. It's amazing, really, that now is the first time for someone like him to actually take a step back and look at how his life has unfolded post 2013. That I'd imagine he's not the only person in that sort of situation. A lot of people will have gone straight into management, gone straight into coaching, life kind of escalating at 100 miles an hour. And now is the only time when that is all taken away. And it goes from code to code, really, at this point. Like, even we heard before, Ronan, from Davy Fitz, obviously, and he was kind of alluding to something similar, that it just feels that his life is at one big loose end. But if you're looking at it the way Ronan O'Gara is looking at it, you can certainly turn it into a positive quite quickly, like reading books, like helping yourself in terms of how you think. Of course, there's obviously the day-to-day life of being a dad, which I presume is going to consume most of his life for the next little while. But it's interesting that a coach can use this in some sort of positive manner.
Yeah, I like you reevaluate everything, but I found certainly over the initial days that you just look at everything you're at and the people around you, and like there's so much stuff that it gives you pause for thought for that you would never. You're just too busy everybody's just too busy on the treadmill of whatever it is you're doing. Everyone's just too busy, and then suddenly you're not busy at all, and you get an opportunity to have a bit of a think about everything that's going on with life. So yeah, it was interesting, and there was so much stuff there. The throwing the sleeping advice. The kids' sleeping advice at the window was one of the highlights of the chat for me. It has to be said that, listen, if it's 7 in the bed, it's 7 in the bed. And you just got to roll with it. That's like, because there's so much guff that's spoken about that particularly, that like if it's right that they all jump into the bed one night, then sure, that's just the way it is. And particularly at this time, I'm sure that it's a bit of an easier call.
You're telling me, Adrian, the struggle is real, I think, The
struggle is real.
I don't want you to blow all your good Dadcast content here, but have you followed a similar vein of O'Gara? Just throw caution to the wind when it comes to bedtime?
Yeah, we would have been like that long before this anyway. We'd have so we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the 1-year-old is a brilliant, independent young woman. I'm going to say at this stage, she does her own thing. She independent play, doesn't want to really, if you're around, she'll have great crack with you and full of personality and full of laughs and chats and all that stuff. But we're very happy to get on with herself. Whereas the 3-year-old is much less so, and we had been through a phase of 3 or 4 months of coming into his parents at sort of any time from kind of 3 o'clock on in the morning, but it's much better now. Probably it comes in about 7 o'clock, and that's the way it works. But I 100% subscribe to the if they want to come in and they're not disrupting your sleep or their own sleep, more importantly, all that much. Who really cares? Like that's really been driven home, obviously, as well with this latest stuff. Are people watching OTBAM care about this stuff? Probably not. Would be my main main thought.
I've certainly seen a huge upsurge in people requesting a return of your Dadcast.
Well,
I think that is something that would be, there's a big thirst for that right now.
It's almost as if you'd teed me up for this. There is definitely a hard plan to record one at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So for more of this,
well, we can be satisfied at long last.
Right, there's a few pieces that we've been looking at on that we wanted to bring people's way from the back pages this morning. There's lots of stories, obviously. Should remind you up on offtheball.com if you want to get up there. All the very latest of sport that's either happening or more appropriately not happening, you'll get up there. So head along, and lots of good feature pieces up there that are involved from sport and wide beyond that as well. So head up there and you can check those out. But one piece we want to bring in this morning was from the London Independent, Miguel Delaney writing about the reason that football is still important. And this is one, obviously, that we're still trying to wrap our heads around, where the place for organised and professional sport, or the GAA in this country as it is, where does that fit now? Or where does that start to come back? Where does that tap get to turn back on a small bit? And what does it all mean anyway? And the tone of Miguel's piece is very much along the Arrigo Sacchi line that has come up over the last few weeks about football being the most important thing of the least important things. So it very much follows that line. He says, consider the following. This is sort of what sums it up for me towards the end of the piece. Consider the following elusive but encouraging thought. Imagine what the first game back is going to be like. Imagine what the first goal back is going to be like. Imagine what your stadium is going to be like. It's easy to come up with the picture, be it Anfield or Fir Park. It'll be a glorious congregation of people and thereby a celebration of life itself until we get the celebration of a goal. He says it'll be like an atmosphere like no other, thousands of people waiting for a match that is no longer a mere game, but is an affirmation of why we're all here and the feelings that actually are important to life. Like, it does paint a beautiful picture. It feels like sort of we'll get to this cliff edge, so sport is not happening until it's absolutely happening. And I actually don't really think that it's going to manifest itself in that way. I referred to the trickle a few times today, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So it's hard to know if there will be that fulsome outpouring of emotion. Oh, and I don't know how you feel about it, but because I think that there'll be the games will return behind closed doors at some point. Then they'll allow in a certain number of fans that will be socially distanced, and then they'll allow a bit more and a bit more and a bit more until we are back to somewhere near capacity or at capacity. So I'm not. That moment sounds beautiful, and it would be a fantastic thing if it could happen. I'm just not sure we're headed to that in such a linear fashion.
I'd agree with you. I think that if you look at what's happening in terms of the meetings between Premier League clubs at the moment, it is not going to be a situation where you just turn the tap right back on. There will be an easing into it where you will have football beamed into your home for a little while. And then, as you say, something I hadn't really considered, there will probably be half stadiums then until you fully ratchet it back up to some level of normality. Could be 12 months, 18 months before that eventuality is. So perhaps people will be used to watching empty stadiums on their TV before then. But if you just put it this way, and like, if there was to be a return of football suddenly, if everything was to be called off, and I don't think that there's any flawed logic in that, where, and we'll get into this in a moment, where they say if you can't put people together in a stand, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to put footballers together on a pitch. If that is the case, then it might all come back together in one instantaneous moment at some stage in the far future. At that point, then, of course, that moment will be incredible. Like, think of Serie A, like knowing what we know now, and that return to football, it'll be an unbelievably emotional moment. It'll be like, you try to think of kind of similar moments in sport in recent time, and the one that certainly comes to mind for me is when Munster had their first game after the passing of Anthony Foley, and how an emotional moment in a town and a city can just explode into life, and this sporting moment is something that people will never forget. Is that what sport then becomes in different pockets all around the world when it returns? I think it might. I think it depends on what the response is and how quickly things come back, or how slowly they come back, really, which is probably a more apt way of looking at it. But yeah, it's interesting as well what Miguel says in that piece, kind of like citing David Goldblatt and his Age of Football book and the unbelievable global vehicle that the sport has become, and then how it is just so evidently missing in every community around the world when it is gone like this, because it has invaded every aspect of life. But as we were saying earlier, I think the response from people who are running the game has been interesting in the fact that it has been unified. And you have people like Alexander Seferin, and you have people involved in various organisations like Infantino as well, who seem to be singing from the same hymn sheet, not always been the way in recent times.
Yeah, I think that we're suddenly finding out what it is that the commonalities that we have rather than the differences, which you so often go to seek out. And it's a point picked up by Henry Winter, writes a very similar piece actually in the Times, where he says the roar when the first ball is kicked will be deafening. Where were we? He asks himself in that sort of existential way. But yeah, I don't know that we're fully headed there. I think there will at some point, once it all starts to get back to full normality at some point way down the track. I think there will be some sort of a global movement at some point where we'll mark, unfortunately, the tragedies that are going to happen over the coming months, and I'm sure that'll be, as you say, a combined and concerted effort to go ahead and do that. And maybe that's where we get that moment of that collective, the roar that Miguel and Henry Winter speak about is really that sort of giving voice to the relief, I suppose, that we're through this thing. But there's some way to go on that path before we get there just yet. One other piece we wanted to mention, John Fogarty writing the Irish Examiner, county chairs to discuss coronavirus impact on GAA fixtures. So this is a teleconference that's going to happen between the chairman of the various county boards and the powers that be at Croke Park at 12 o'clock today. So we've mentioned the various dates that get thrown about. Obviously March 29th is in there as the government recommendation initially. Some of these things have been, the leagues obviously have been postponed. The championship the start of May has been postponed as well. So I don't know what's going to come out of that, other than most likely the same thing that's come out of most of the other conversations. We'll put some sort of a nominal date on it. We'll say that we'll put June the 1st on it as a date that we can work towards, and let's rehab this conversation in a month or 6 weeks' time, I guess.
Yeah, I think the line from Fogarty's piece is that the cessation period is expected to extend beyond March 29th and likely after Easter Sunday, which falls on April 12th. But well, like they're any date that the GAA will give now, and I'm sure they'll be the first people to admit it, is that it's going to be entirely speculative, completely and utterly vague. We don't know what is going to happen with a lot of these competitions now. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I don't think anybody's going to kick up a fuss if we get to August, and that is when life resumes, that the GAA then say, right, 8 weeks, let's run off both championships, straight knockout, even if we have to disband provincial championships in football and hurling, let's just do it, let's run it off. And I think people will just take what they can get. People like that is the only option for a lot of people. I think the main story from this organisation really over the last couple of days has been the opening up of Croke Park, the opening up of Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Nolan Park, and on the list will go, I presume, over the next couple of weeks. That has been the GAA story, and it has been remarkable how they've responded to this crisis. It's been great to see, and that is more important than any meeting they will or anything that will come from today's meeting. But I guess they have to do it. They have to come up with some sort of earliest return date possible. It'll be post-Easter without question, but it would be a huge shock were that actually to be followed through with and were that actually to be possible.
Yeah, just give us there was one other piece we wanted to mention. Just give us a 30-second summation. John Obi Mikel railing against it in Turkey.
Yeah, Dave Heitner's done a piece with Mikel in The Guardian today, just explaining how he's taken a stand over how the coronavirus caused him to walk out on Trabzonspor. So anybody who's been looking on livescore.com for football, there's been little bits and pieces of football in some countries in Africa, but also the Turkish Super League had been going ahead until Thursday. And naturally, John Obi Mikel, like a lot of other footballers, I'd imagine, turned on the news, looked at their phone and saw what was actually happening, that this was just not sensible whatsoever for football to be proceeding all the way through until Thursday. So he wasn't having this. He was opposed to the matches going ahead, and he walked out and he was told that his contract would be terminated were he to walk out, and he was like, yeah, grand, I'm still going to do this. And that was it. The behind closed doors game went ahead, but after that the Turkish Super League has been cancelled. So essentially Mikel was right, he was just a couple of days early. So yeah, he's gone from his football club at the moment, and he is one of the footballers who's taken a stand on this, not entirely dissimilar to the comments from Wayne Rooney last weekend.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave the papers there for this morning. It's just gone 8:50 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along watching OTBAM, the sports breakfast show from Off the Ball, with you every weekday morning from 7:30, and that will continue. Right, crappy quiz still to come on this morning's show. It's been myself, Nathan, and Tommy. Been put through our paces by Owen, the quiz master. We're going to be back with our GAA power rankings for 2020 straight after this Midland special. I mentioned it a bit earlier. Will O'Callaghan catching up with the Westmeath football star Ray Canellan yesterday afternoon. Here's how it went.
Ray, like me, you were watching the action at an empty MCG this morning. Start of the AFL season, felt really weird. I was watching it in BT, where you had two great rivals who would usually pack the place out in Richmond and Carlton, and the place is empty. What did you make of the decision on St. Patrick's Day for them to go ahead with this season in a very weird way? Fewer rounds, no fans in the stadium for the moment. To me, it seemed a bit surreal this morning.
Yeah, it was very strange. When I was watching it, I was looking, Carlton were running out, and in Australia, the teams come out at one at a time. There's, like, I know I've been to a few Richmond games, and Richmond have one of the best fan bases in sport. They've got drums lining up the tunnel as you come out. There's the Tigers, the Tiger roar as they come out, comes out over the speakers, and it's this really deafening atmosphere. And then today it's kind of like, okay, this is weird. We're running out to a bit of music and no cheering, no clapping, no. They normally run out through like the banner and like you've got kids there holding it up and stuff, and there was none of this, and just a very kind of eerie feeling to it. It felt like it looked like a practice match. It looked like a kind of a practice sim game that you'd have kind of leading into round one. I think it's a bit weird. I'm surprised that they're going ahead with it, but then when you look at the commercial aspect of it, like the TV rights in AFL are $2.5 billion. They have a $2.5 billion contract a year. This with Fox, and it's a lot of money, like to honour these rights too. And I spoke to a few mates from Australia there only this morning who were just saying like they all wanted to see it. The players wanted to play it, so they all just felt, look, we'll go ahead with it just behind closed doors. So a bit strange, but that was the decision that was made.
Any of the Irish lads you were talking to, do they have any concerns? Because, I mean, obviously revenue is going to be massively down. It's not like the Irish lads out in the league, maybe with the exception of Toohey, are probably earning big money. They're probably on the smaller contracts. But the worry, I guess, would have to be there that clubs are going to have a struggle without fans coming through the gate here.
Yeah, well, I think there is talk about pay cuts now, and that's, I think, Australia-wide. All sports are now starting to look at pay cuts, and I think there's talk of kind of 20% pay cuts for players, but I think for some players that'll obviously affect them more than others. You've got, I would find it hard if you're an international rookie and you're on your between 80 and 90 grand a year. If you're taking a 20% pay cut, the cost of living in Australia is so high that's actually it's a big cut out of your salary. I
was in Sydney not that long ago. $8 for a beer. 90 grand isn't going a long time, particularly if you live in, say, Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah, if you're living in Sydney, there is actually an allowance for players in Sydney where they get paid an extra little bit on top of their contract because cost of living is so high. But Melbourne's similar. I mean, you can go out for breakfast in Dublin here and you can get a half decent breakfast for, I don't know, 10, 12 euro or whatever it is. But if you're going over to Oz and you want to go out for a breakfast, it's going to cost you the guts of $30. So it does add up, and you think these guys, oh look, isn't it great he's earning that money, but everything, you're earning more, you're paying more. It's kind of the way it is over there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to combat the lack of attendances, because I think it's the fourth highest attended domestic game on the planet. I think nearly 40,000 is your average attendance at a game. That's an awful lot of money for clubs to be waving goodbye to.
Absolutely. You're not going to get 40,000 into Gaelic Games matches, and obviously the GA made a decision pretty early that everything's off till March 29th, and it looks like April is entirely gone based on what some of the counties have done now as well. As a player, how would you have felt if, say, closed doors had happened? Would you have felt comfortable? Would you have felt safe playing if that had been the environment you were sent out in?
No, I think they've made the right call. I was very happy when they did call it. I've got friends, family who have underlying health conditions. I've tried as much as I can in the last couple of weeks to keep my circle as small as possible. So any of the lads that I'd normally hang out with that I haven't yet met, I think I've kind of hung out with the same kind of, outside my family, the same 2 or 3 people all the time, because I'm trying to just keep the circle as small as possible. So I wouldn't like to be out in a field where there's, 30 odd other lads running around, and, there's obviously a lot of body contact. You could be sharing a water bottle or something like that. I just think for the sake of the season, or for the sake of a few games, just do the right thing, call it off. So I think I was pretty happy when the decision was made. I wouldn't like to be the one to bring home this virus. It probably wouldn't affect me too badly as a young, healthy adult, but I think there's certainly people in my family and my close circle of friends that if I were to pass it on, it would certainly have very, very adverse effects on their health, and I definitely wouldn't like to be the one that passed it on to them.
Do you start to maybe kind of accept that the championships might well be redrawn at this stage? We're probably looking at something quite radical. I'd imagine at club level as well. There were meant to be games in April in Westmeath. They're not going to happen now. I assume we're going to see radical change here.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Like they're going to have to do something. I think the biggest thing is just going to see how much time they have and when all this stuff kind of passes over. I suppose watching the Taoiseach address the other night when Varadkar mentioned that this is kind of only the beginning, so that would let you believe that there's going to be another at least month, 6 weeks of this. How much time is that going to start leaving to fit in games, and I suppose that's when you need to start managing the calendar and see, right, where do we go with this? Like, how many games can we fit in, and where do we put them? How are their pitches playable? Like, and other things like this, because you're going to have underage football, minor, you've got your women's football, you've got male football, club, intercounty. All of this is going to be condensed into a much shorter time period. So I'm delighted I have nothing to do with putting these things together, because it's going to be a headache for whoever has to rearrange all the fixtures.
All right, with so much pause obviously on live sport across the country, we decided to press pause ourselves a little bit and have a look at I don't know quite what these are. I think they're going to be like a power rankings of teams across the GA. It's effectively an opportunity for Owen, even though sports has been totally shut down across the globe, for Owen to yarra his way to the fact that Kerry are not actually in the number one spot to win back Sam Maguire. So that's going to come up in just a second. Obviously, the latest and stated play of where we're at in terms of GA, just to give you a reminder of all of that, it's the Allianz Leagues have been frozen. We've had a March 29th date put on a potential return for that. We shall see. Obviously, the opening rounds of the championship as well at the start of May, they've been postponed for now. Those timelines look ambitious in the extreme. I'm sure we'll have an update at some point in the coming weeks as well from Croke Park and beyond, in terms of a refresh of those dates and what we might be looking at, if any, possibility of getting those games played away in 2020. It should be said at this time as well, I haven't heard very much, but I'm sure it's been out there that the leadership in the GAA really should be commended. We touched on it actually, I think, last week from recollection, when these points might have been mooted. I think John Horn might have been out with some comments last week, and we had spoken about the idea that leadership from such a powerful organisation in the country was exactly what was needed. And it has to be said, John Horn and Tom Ryan and Peter McKenna and whoever the people are that are responsible for making the decisions in there about the opening up of Croke Park and the opening up of Páirc Uí Chaoimh and hopefully the other GAA stadia that will follow, really have paid tribute to the societies in which they exist to serve. And I think it's probably going to be the best legacy of any GAA leadership in living memory, certainly from my point of view anyway. I think that it'll go down to their credit for some time to come. So our caps are doffed. It's an unusual thing to be saying, so we did want to take the opportunity to say our caps are doffed to those who've made those decisions within Croke Park and at the wider GAA channel for doing that. So that said, right, Owen, yerry your way to the fact that Kerry are not the #1 team in the country. That's what we're doing?
Well, you know, yerrying never sleeps, much less yerrying never goes into lockdown. I think everybody knows that. You don't need me to tell you this. These are the most correct, perfect, flawless power rankings. The last most correct, perfect, flawless power rankings we're going to have for quite some time. I can hear hearts break around the country as they hear that sound. So we're going to do this one last time for God knows how long. We go from 33 right the way through to #1, and that's where we crown Dublin as the best team in the country usually. So we'll go through the bottom to the top. So at number 33, we've got New York, and at number 32, we've got London. I always say at this moment, fair play to New York and London, because unlike Kilkenny, they actually take part. They actually have a team. Fair play to them. And Waterford in at 31, much like Kilkenny.
And fair play to them as well.
A hurling county, but they have a football team. So fair play to them. There's no shame being down there at the moment. Waterford have dropped 2 places in the latest rankings. So as I see it at the moment, the lowest ranked team in Ireland in Gaelic football. Sligo have had a bad couple of months, in my opinion, not a great start to the Alliance League. It's obviously been a poor few years for them as well. They were in at number 30. And then Wicklow have made a slight jump at number 29. They were at 30 in our last rankings. Our last rankings, by the way, were done in January, February after one round of Alliance League games. At number 28,
Owen, is it worth at this point throwing in the factors as to why? Because I think this is going to get more important the further we go on. How have you come up with this odd list?
Well, the factors that I've come up with for this list are pure and utter genius, Adrian. It is about Alliance League results that we've seen over the last few weeks. It is about championship results last year and the year before to a certain point, and then also my own sprinkling on things, as in my opinion.
But, yeah, which is a bit of like there's a bit of an injury here, and like is this actually a list of who you think is most likely to win the All Ireland?
You could put it that way. If I have a team ranked above the other team, I define that team to have a chance of beating that team in a one-off game. I would favour that team in a one-off game. So
there might be a difference between the best team in the country right now, and the team that you think are going to win the All Ireland, is what I'm
saying. Is there a difference between those two things? Potentially.
Well, I think there is.
You know, like can you break down, you know, styles make fights and all that sort of stuff, Adrian? If you take like a number 10 seed here against number 12 seed, is the particular talents of number 12 conducive to beating 10 on a one-off day? Perhaps, but I think in pure strength, when we look at this, every county gets better as we get higher and higher here. So I think London will beat New York, Waterford will beat London, et cetera, et cetera. So the answer to your question is there is no hard and fast rule, because a hard and fast rule would be boring. And we also have the Alliance Leagues. So we're not just going to copy and paste the Alliance Leagues. A bit of magic dust is put on the Alliance Leagues rankings, I think it's fair to say, for these most correct, perfect, flawless rankings.
Accepted.
Number 28 was Antrim, down 2. And Carlow just ahead of them, down 2 at number 27. It's been a bad few years for Carlow ever since that summer of, what was it, 2018 actually. So it's been about 18 months or so. So it's not been a great time for them. A big drop here at number 26 I've got Louth down 5, not been impressed with them so far in the Allianz Leagues. And then just ahead of Louth at number 25, we've got Leitrim down 1. Of course, it was all about Leitrim rising last year. They got their big day out in Croke Park, but ever since then, I think they've been dropping a little bit by bit, obviously up to Division 3, could go the other way now this year for them. At number 24, we've got Paul Galvin's Wexford climbing a big 4 places in this rankings. But the big mover this week, or this edition, is Limerick, up 8 places to number 23. So I wasn't buying the whole Limerick hype last year. They beat Tipperary in the summer, and I was like, it's a one-off victory. It's nothing to be looked at. It's complete fluke. But they've actually gone back this year into the league and started it really, really well. The Limerick football cohort will be very disappointed with the fact that Gaelic games have been postponed and they won't get to see their team play for a few months at the very least at this point, because they were flying. Slightly controversially though, just above Limerick in these rankings, I've got Tipperary, the team that they did beat last year in the championship. But we're going to put a little bit of my magic dust on this here, so I keep Tipperary ahead of Limerick.
I do think that magic dust, like, there is something slightly skewed about it, and I'm sure we're getting into a conversation about Cork in a little bit, but just the fact that, like, you're talking about Limerick are flying, like, and we will talk about Cork in a little bit, but like Limerick are flying against the quality of opposition they're playing. Like, it is difficult. I understand what you're doing, but like.
And that is why they are below Tipperary, because Tipperary are coming up against stronger teams week in, week out. They're at number 22, a non-mover. Just ahead of them, we've got Offaly up 2 to 21. We've got Derry, a non-mover, at 20. And then a heap of non-movers here. You've got Derry at 20, Longford at 19, Down at 18. You can't really separate them. I certainly couldn't separate them when it came to moving them. A big drop here at number 17. I've given up on Fermanagh. I used to be a big fan of Fermanagh, especially what they were doing last year. I thought they were unlucky to get the draw they did in the championship. Back-to-back defeats and they were gone, but they were against 2 excellent teams. So they're down 7 to 17.
Who've they beaten in the league this year?
No one. I want to say no one.
No, they have won. They have. Go on, I'll do a bit of research here while you're going through your random list.
Let me go through my random list before I come back to my actual notes here. At number 16 then, we've got Kildare, who are down to Westmeath, Adrian Barry, up to, and I've got them in at number 15.
That's bollocks. I know you expected me to say that anyway. That's bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, Westmeath are tipping along very nicely in a division that they would have been half expected to get relegated from. Fermanagh beat Roscommon, by the way, so I would think that's one major fly in your nonsense.
I completely forgot that game actually ever happened.
Westmeath definitely would have been. Did extremely well to get into Division 2. They are the quintessential yo-yo team. Westmeath are that quintessential yo-yo team. Occasionally they'll make it into Division 1 and they get spat out after 3 games in a way that you fully expect. And they may still. I mean, if the division was to continue, you could have seen a scenario where they would get relegated. But they've been tipping along that Division 1, and by the world order of merit, should actually be 12th on your list.
Is this not the part where you're supposed to be like 15 perfect and you're supposed to actually downplay the chances of Westmeath?
No. You do that when you come from a county like Kerry, but when you come from a county like Westmeath, where we don't really win anything, unless our Mount Rushmore, Paddy O'Shea, obviously the time that he was there when we were sort of weight punching above our weight. At that point, we were probably doing a bit of yerring, but at the minute, the only thing that gives us a bit of comfort is trying to punch above our weight. So anyway, 15.
My wires crossed there. You can downplay our chances when Westmeath actually are deserving of their top 12 status. They're currently not deserving of this top 12 status that you claim they are, because Clare are a better team than them. Like, we can't just focus on this one-dimensional thing that is this year's Allianz Leagues. There have been 3 storms and a pandemic. We can't just look into what has happened this year in the league. It's a good gauge. Don't get me wrong. It's a very good gauge. But it is not perfect. You need a bit of last year's results. You need a bit of last year's championship and league results. And as I say, a bit of opinion never goes astray, because the championship is a skewed thing as well. Let's not forget.
One last point. Clare, who are probably going to get relegated from that, probably would have got relegated from that division alongside the Fermanagh team, who you had in 32nd or wherever you had them a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Your list makes no sense.
Clare were within a whisker of making it to the Super 8s last year. So Like they could have beaten Meath on that particular occasion. They didn't. That's what I read into. When the ground is hard and when Clare football have their tails up, that's when I judge this, not when Clare are in danger of going between 2 and 3 at this point. Just ahead of Clare, I've gone from Laois, very encouraged with the early signs of Mike Quirke's tenure there. Could push to a top 12 spot, which of course Westmeath people so yearn for at the moment. But slightly controversially, ahead of Laois at the moment, I've gone for Cavan at 12. A lot of people completely writing Cavan off, that they're going to have a terrible summer, don't stand a prayer, but they got hammered the first day out against Armagh, and ever since then, they've been pretty good. They've been excellent at times, actually, Cavan, so far in this league. They've lost a lot of players. I give them time, and I reckon that perhaps in 12 months' time, I know there will be no promotion this year anyway, but in 12 months' time, they might actually be in with a shout of being a top tier team again. They might get Division 1 status again. So I think things aren't as bad as some people make out for Cavan. At number 11 then, we've got Roscommon at this point, and at number 10, we've got Meath. And then the rest of the top...
Sorry to keep jumping in. Roscommon, not it's slightly controversial being that low?
Yeah, they've dropped 5 positions here, actually. So they have, but I guess...
You think they're where are they on the Connacht ranking? Was a conversation we were having actually previously.
3rd.
And we had football 3rd, right? It could be 2nd.
I think we've just settled into the idea that Roscommon are a Division 2 team again. Like, Roscommon are a team who can pluck out a big result in the middle of the summer. They did it last year against Mayo, and not a lot of people would have expected that. Mayo were league champions, Division 1 league champions going into that game, and Roscommon beat them in Castlebar. They're prone to a big result in the middle of the summer. But right now I have them at number 11. I'll accept that that's probably going to be one of the more controversial points of today's power rankings. But I just feel that Meath, having put in at least half a spring in Division 1, just edged them for a top 10 spot. I think Meath have been relatively impressive in recent weeks. They haven't been I guess, they haven't been getting a complete battering in every game. They've lost every game, but they haven't been getting a complete battering in every game. And I think that's hugely encouraging for Meath. And I have them just edging Roscommon at the moment. At number 9, we have Cork, a Division 3 team, but really, they're not a Division 3 team. They are next year potentially, if I don't know what they're going to do with this year's promotion, but were they to be a Division 2 team next year, I suspect that they would push for promotion in that. If we get some football this summer, I expect big things from Cork. A potential upset in Munster is something that could happen. So they're at number 9, up 2 spots. Armagh are up 5 spots to number 8. I think they're the best team in Division 2, Adrian. You're not having this.
Give us a break. Did you pay any attention to the game against Westmeath? Westmeath should have. How Westmeath did not beat them by 4 or 5 points is an absolute mystery. Ended up a draw. I think from recollection, there might have been a late Armagh point. That makes a total mockery of these rankings. What number are Armagh?
Armagh are number 8.
And the team that really definitely should have beaten them are 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when it doesn't matter, when competition doesn't matter. Wait for Geezer to get his troops on the hard ground of summer. Should have knocked Mayo out of the championship last year. Very, very impressive forward unit. Excellent team, Armagh, the best team in Division 2 for me, without question. At number 7, we've got Mayo down 3 spots or they were in danger of getting relegated. They're at number 7. Monaghan at number 6. I thought today, obviously, they did have a very, very bad 2019, but they started this year off encouragingly. Should have won in Croke Park, really. At least they came away with the draw on that occasion. At number 5, we've got Donegal down 2 spots. We've got Tyrone up 1 place, number 4. Galway are now number 3. Kerry are number 2. And the Dubs are hanging on to their number 1 spot. And really, it's a ridiculous notion to think that anybody but Dublin should have that number 1 spot.
What is your case against Kerry here?
I think their defence has weakened this year. They've lost Donny Buckley, an excellent coach, and they should have beaten Dublin on the opening night of the league. They had that opportunity, and they didn't. They had 2 opportunities last year in the championship. They didn't take either of them. They beat them all right in the league last year, but that was about it. I think that there isn't as much between them now as there was 18 months ago. I think that much is very clear. But I just think to say that they are the best team in the country right now is just not true when we haven't even seen a full league campaign and they had 2 games to win the All-Ireland last year and they couldn't beat the Dubs. So there's no way you can make a case for Kerry right now to be the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, but they ran Dublin to a replay in a game that they should have maybe won the first day. And so I think it does a bit of a disservice to them, a deliberate disservice, by the way, I would suggest, coming from the sources coming from. And like you look at a team like Dublin, and there are definitely, the Donny Buckley thing, fair enough. There are reasons also, I think, from the Dublin point of view, obviously coming to Cropper and Omagh, the brawl there at half time, there are bits and pieces to suggest. And by the way, I think that like it's obviously a work in progress for Davy Farrell that may well be down the track where that brawl, for example, is like, would that have happened at her gym? I suppose is probably a question that's worth asking. And that's going to be the question that's going to come up if and when the championship picks up at some point later in the year. That'll be the thing that obviously people go back to. But there is that uncertainty that I'm not sure you're paying enough value to.
I don't know. I think that would that brawl have happened in Omagh under Jim Gavin? It might well have done. There was that brawl in Tralee last year, I remember, at full time, except it's not as serious, where Jim Gavin just kind of skirted around the outside of that particular altercation. Like he lets it happen as well, or he let it happen when he was Dublin manager. He liked to have an edge in his players, and there were incidents like that. Obviously, nothing as big as the brawl in Omagh. I certainly wouldn't be using that as kind of a sign that the Dubs have changed in any way. I think they've always had that edge, and sometimes it spills over to the scenes that we saw on that occasion. So I would have no worries about them. I think that if we get some football this summer, it could potentially as well be a condensed season. It could be knockout. It could be a game every week, potentially all the way through. Dublin have the strongest squad in the country, and for me, that just accentuates their chances or their status, I should say, as the best team in the country.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean, I don't actually agree with your list, but you make some reasonable arguments. I think that Davy Byrne, obviously, and David Byrne, at times led on those games that maybe could have gone the other way. There are reasons to suggest that things might be okay under Davy Farrell, but I'm still not 100% sure I buy the logic of a team that are mid-table in Division 1 necessarily being where they were at last year. Not 100% convinced by that, but as you say, only the hard sod will tell on.
But the issue now that I would have with that is that you have disagreed with the most perfect, flawless, outstanding power rankings there is. Like, that's not something that you can possibly do because they are flawless.
The world rankings, the GA world rankings. Oh, fair play. You've done a lot of work.
It's been a pleasure. And I can't believe I'm not going to be able to power rank my counties again. I will say it does mean, and I will give this warning to everybody, hurling power rankings might have to come next week. And then we might just have to get into more of the minutiae as the weeks go by. Best footballer in the country, then we get into like best forward, best midfielder, best back in the country. Who knows? If anybody's got any suggestions for any lists, any power rankings they want done over these next few weeks, just tweet me. Just let me know, because your topic deserves the most perfect, flawless power ranking treatment there is.
Oh, pleasure as always. Good man. Fair play. Talk to you soon. We are going to take a quick break, and the crappy quiz up next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
There's a growing hostility towards cyclists. We're somehow seen as a nuisance, when in fact we're just people trying to get to work.
I've never ever gotten one bad word said to me about my sexuality, or from the opposition, or from, actually in one bad time, the girl was marking me so tightly, I was like, I have a girlfriend.
I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, and that doesn't worry me. I know I can play good enough golf.
Don't miss the panel every Saturday afternoon, only on Off the Ball.
OTB AM.
I am doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it is the stupefying, it is the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday, and I mean every Friday, we really do not fail to do this slot. We pit three of Team Off the Ball up against one another in a quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today is a man who has spent the last few days watching back some compilations of his favourite sports moments. These moments include Tommy Rooney's dummy solo in the 2018 Junior Championship first round, Tommy Rooney's 20-yard hand pass in the 2018 Junior Championship semi-final, and Tommy Rooney's note-perfect rendition of Sweet Caroline in the aftermath of the 2018 Junior Championship final. Give it up for Tommy Rooney.
Hi lads, you forgot my goal in the championship final.
Oh, you were watching that back as well? What is the Off the Ball pop shield on? There is like a...
It's a mic.
On his finger.
Oh,
chopstick.
Oh, very good. It's a very cultural way of putting up an off-the-ball pop shield, I must say. In the middle seat today, or in the bottom right of your picture, is a man who socially distanced himself from people long before it was a done thing. Well, at least he called it social distancing. His wife called it locking himself into his room to play FIFA while the children went hungry. Give it up for the beast of Ballyhaunis, Nate Dog Murphy.
Wow, harsh. I haven't played FIFA in years.
Really? Football Manager?
No. I haven't played, like all the talk of Football Manager, I won't lie.
There's a lot of
bug is
talk.
coming back. I'm tempted to even download 0102. I have seen that you can download 0102 with current players. But I guess the issue there is they're just replacing former players. So you need to figure out who those former players are to know who's good, if you get what I mean. I might give it a go. I saw bizarrely Adrian Barry was deciding to download Football Manager. I don't know if it happened, but I think
Adrian must have a lot of time in his hands.
Did it happen?
Yeah, no, actually, what happened there was, Owen, through the chair, was that I did make an inquiry about downloading Football Manager, and I asked my colleagues about whether this was a good idea or not. One came back and said you should go for 0102, and then I queried that. Still waiting to hear back the answer, though, so...
I'll go for it. Well, you see, if you haven't played 0102 before, I don't know if you'll actually get the joy out of it, because it's more the nostalgic feeling is what you get from playing 0102. But the other problem is, and I think I saw someone replying saying you can play a simplified version of the new game, which is now available free to download. But the new version is just too complicated. Whereas 0102 is a perfect amount of addiction, control and power over the team, but you're not having to spend 3 weeks between matches sorting out a training regime.
So you would you suggest to get the 0102 version with current players or no?
Yeah, I think maybe that's the way for you to go, Adrian.
Okay.
Right. I have another pressing question. I know we need to crack on with things. What are you supposed to do when we're broadcasting and you really need to itch your nose?
Is this something that's just happened since you started broadcasting from home? What would you do when you're in the studio?
Well, pre all this craziness, I would touch my nose and I would, I'd
Tommy's chopstick.
What happens? I have a pressing question too. What happens if you haven't put your phone on Do Not Disturb while you're broadcasting and Joe Malloy is messaging you asking how to do a pre-record for God's sake?
Name drop. Can't believe it. That is sickening.
The funny part of that, Tommy, is that Joe Malloy texted me about 10 minutes ago and I said, under no circumstances text Tommy for the next hour because he's going to be recording.
So what does happen, Tommy, is your screen actually goes off and everybody saw your name flash up instead of your actual camera there. So thank you for helping us discover that. And we've got a new setup of screens here. This is a brave new world, everyone. I should introduce our final contestant tonight. He is the King of Outrage, but the King of Outrage now has nowhere to channel his outrage because he is stuck at home. He has now started to channel outrage towards himself, screaming at himself in the mirror for things like not being able to plug the USB in the right way the first time and accidentally changing the volume on his TV to an odd number. Give it up for Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
Yeah, it's a good shout with the volume on. I'm a little bit OCD about that, but I hadn't realised until you said it there. Thanks. No, there's plenty of outrage, and none of it that faux when you're trying to corral a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old to breakfast and all that sort of stuff. I found myself losing the rag a bit this morning, but that's for another podcast, another day.
And I would also like to hear your barista tips for people who obviously have to make their own coffee at home at the moment, Adrian.
French press at the minute on. Sampling through a load of ground coffees at the minute. We got a few bags in just so I wouldn't be short. I will come back with that review, I promise you. Another podcast.
We wait with bated breath for that. As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with 4 questions each after 4 rounds. The trivia equivalent of taking every game as it comes is up. That is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on offtheball.com or on the Go Loud app. You can give us 5 out of 5 in the rating, even if that doesn't represent your actual opinion. And please send any questions you have via Twitter. Don't send them via postcard because we might not be in the office. But if you do have them already written on a postcard, you can send them to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. We will get to them next year. We haven't done a quiz this year, and therefore we don't have any posts this week, so we're okay with that. Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Question 1 for you, Tommy. Can you name all the inter-county All-Ireland winners in hurling and in football from the 1990s?
Bloody hell.
We're not messing about today.
Wow. Okay, this feels like the man who scored the first goal in the Premier League back in 1992-93. I don't know who that was. Anyone know who that was?
Brian Dean.
Okay.
Come on.
Inclusive, 1990.
That's the next question. Isn't it?
Cork, Down, Donegal, Derry, down Dublin, Meath, Kerry, Galway, Meath. That's all the football.
Correct.
And the hurling goes... This is ridiculous. Like, football would have been fair. Okay. Hurling goes Cork in 1990. Kilkenny in 1999.
It's just those 8 years in the middle now, Tommy.
Kilkenny 99. Tip 91.
Yeah.
Offaly 98, Clare 97.
Sorry, say that again.
Offaly 98, Clare 97.
One more. Tick tock, tick tock.
I just had to name the counties.
Yeah, you're missing one county though.
I thought it was the years. It's just the counties.
Yeah.
Oh, grand.
Well, come on.
What?
Oh, you idiot.
Limerick.
He said Limerick.
No,
Limerick.
absolutely not Limerick. Who is it, lads?
Wexford.
Oh, come on. You should have clarified that I didn't need to go in chronological order with the years.
Yeah,
that completely threw me.
It made it substantially easier for you, and you'd still mess it up. 0 points for that.
My
all
God.
bar one of them.
Can I just point out that Nathan's smugness transcends coronavirus? You absolute idiot, he said straight away after he misses like one out of like an impossible question.
I tried to go by year. Look, okay, fair enough. Hit the crossbar.
Nathan, the last time Liverpool won the league, a Liverpool player did not win PFA Footballer of the Year. It went to an Aston Villa player after they finished second in the 1989-90 season. Who was it?
Paul McGrath.
No.
You absolute idiot.
You absolute idiot.
Villa player, 1990.
Yeah.
Dean Saunders.
Saunders.
Dalian Atkinson.
Keep going, Adrian.
David Platt.
Oh.
David Platt was PFA Footballer in 1990.
Oh, sickener.
Adrian, 20 years this week since Brian O'Driscoll's hat-trick in Paris in his true Six Nations arrival. Can you name his midfield partner in Ireland that day? Who played beside Brian O'Driscoll in the centre?
If only I had done a Classic Games Clubs on this.
You've literally watched the full game back 2 weeks ago.
I did. It wasn't
possibly
Darcy,
one of only a few people in Ireland who watched it back.
It was Henderson.
Correct. Rob Henderson. Adrian's off
that's
the mark.
ridiculous.
Wow, that's ridiculous. That is
tough question, though.
Tough question, lads. Only easy to know the answer.
Literally on the game you watched back last week.
Can't blame a guy for doing a bit of research.
Sorry, exactly. Well said on.
Like, I had to name about 20 winners. All right.
Yeah, and you messed it up. So it's Adrian 1, Nathan 0, Tommy 0 after round 1. Round 2 is the home fitness studio round. As the world's fittest men, we can safely say that the last few days have been tough for us. We haven't been able to get into the gym or pump some iron or keep these guns loaded. So we've been turning our attention to home workouts. And this round will test your knowledge on some of the exercises you can do in your own home. Question 2. Describe to me what a burpee is. Double points if you can perform one.
Describing is difficult. I can definitely perform one. Describing one is so it's like it's essentially press up, squat, press up position, and then jump up.
Correct. Do you just want to take the 1 point? You can do one for us if you want, Tommy. Get your 2 points.
Well, like, how am I going to get my camera? How am I going to get my camera set for this? Do you want to give me? Do you want to ask the next question? I'll get set up.
Yeah, Nathan.
Okay.
Describe.
Really wish I'd worn pants.
Describe to me what a cobra is, and same as Tommy, double points if you manage to perform one.
A cobra.
Yeah.
Come on, a squat. A squat is very straightforward. A cobra. Like,
I didn't get a squat.
Is it crawling along the ground?
No, afraid not. I would love to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen you actually enact
you should have said yes, that's what it is, and get him to do it.
What is it?
Tommy has knocked his camera off, but here we go. We've got access to Tommy about to do a burpee in the playroom here.
Well, this is sad.
Yes, correct. 2 points for Tommy Rooney. Off the mark. Incredible stuff.
Brilliant start to his crappy quiz. 10 years today. Adrian.
What's a cobra?
Oh, cobra is when you lie down, face down on the ground, and then you like lean up the front part of your body, the torso. You know when you stretch your back? That's what a cobra is. So
right.
Do it there, Owen. I don't know. I can't picture it. Do it there.
I'm out of breath after that.
Your camera in one place there to do the demonstration. In the meantime,
oh, sorry,
Adrian,
I didn't hear. What is a cobra? What's a cobra?
You know when you stretch your back, when you lie down, face down, and then you stretch your back up. Oh. Adrian, can you explain to us, or demonstrate for 2 points, what a glute bridge is?
Oh, I'm all over this. Right. Will I just demonstrate and that will show you that I know what it is? How about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I don't know how this is going to go. This could be an absolute...
No, he has to describe it. No, he has to describe it.
No. Like, if I'm doing it, you'll know that I know what it is.
Yeah, that's
glute bridge. Oh, I'm all over this, lads.
This is...
right, I put the old skinny jeans on me today, so you have to bear with me here.
Looking good. This is off the ball.
You're going to need me on the floor here.
Fitness.
Right, have you got me there now in full shot?
Yeah, we do indeed. Great shot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, ready for action?
Ready for action.
Squeeze your pelvis.
Yes, there we go. Glute bridge. 2 points for Adrian Barry. Fantastic stuff.
Can you do single leg? Can you do single leg?
Absolutely. Single leg?
No bother to me, Tommy.
Oof.
Okay, your form is... I think we need Andy Dunn here to work on
form. My God, those...
Pretty good, man.
This is not what the nation needs right now.
Those hips certainly don't lie, Adrian Barry.
I feel worked up a sweat there.
The scores after round 2. Adrian, you're on 3 points, leading the way. Nathan still on 0. Tommy, you're on 2 points. Well done to Tommy and Adrian there for engaging in that round. Round 3 is the social distancing round. So it's been a tough week for many a person over the past few days as they've been forced to stay away from other people. Not so for people who play individual sports though, because they basically play their games to get away from everybody else in the first place. This round will test your knowledge on some of Ireland's best individual sports people. Tommy, can you name the last person to win an Olympic medal for Ireland in an individual event?
Annalise Murphy?
Oh, correct. Good answer. Of course, the O'Donovans, the other medal winners from Rio. Nathan, Rory McIlroy still sits pretty on his own at the top of golf's world rankings. But what event did he first win as a professional way back in 2009?
He won at Quail Hollow?
No. That might have been his first PGA Tour event. The Dubai Desert Classic.
Too late. Too late. You absolute idiot.
Come on. Dubai Desert Classic.
Are you basically Paul Azinger saying that professional means PGA?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought you meant.
Adrian, Katie Taylor is one of Ireland's top individual sports people. Can you name her next opponent?
Great question. Well done, Owen. In this world of crazy,
Friday after Friday,
some things are very consistent. I mean, the answer is no, obviously, but
It's a disgrace, Adrian. Absolute disgrace.
Hang on. No, give me. I'm going to give this a stab, right? So give me a second over here.
You should notice, Adrian.
I suspect I probably should, Tommy, but I'm going to go with Natasha Potkinen.
Oh my God!
No,
am I right?
It is not Natasha Potkinen. It is Amanda Serrano, of course.
The Serrano.
Oh, damn it!
Right, Adrian, you didn't score any points there, but you were tied for the lead. You were on 3 points. Tommy, you were also on 3 points. Nathan, you were trailing. You were back on 0 points at the moment.
Well, I should have got 1 point for that.
Do we have pens and paper, lads?
Oh shit! No pen and paper.
Oh, well, hold on, I'll get one. Hold on.
Here, I'll give you a page. I'll give you a page.
Okay. As they root around
here,
their
I've got a laptop.
We get a nice exposed view of Nathan's bookshelf.
Whoa!
Hold
on a second. He can't do it on a laptop.
You
could be Googling answers.
I give you my word, I'm not going to Google answers.
So what we're going to need here, lads, is we're going to need to show.
It's either that time
show your answer. We're going to need you to show your answer to the camera at the end of this. Right. So we're all ready to rock?
Yeah, let's go.
Round 4. The Fun Free Magic Number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of players allowed on the pitch at any one time in Aussie rules, plus the number of points clear of second place in the Premier League, Liverpool currently are, plus the number that LeBron James wears on his back, plus the number of All-Ireland medals Dessie Farrell won as a player. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads.
Are they any All-Irelands?
Inter-county football All-Irelands.
At any level?
Yes. Right, just to go through those again. The number of players allowed on the pitch at any one time in Aussie rules. The number of points clear Liverpool are at the top of the Premier League right now. What number does LeBron James wear? Plus the number of All-Ireland medals Dessie Farrell won as a player. Got 5 seconds left. All right, pens down. We're going to Adrian. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, come on! What's going on here?
Adrian, come on.
Come on! I've changed one of my answers. It's fine.
Okay, show me.
Just a reminder, he's on a bloody laptop.
Everybody, hold it up to the camera, please. Tommy's gone for 70. Nathan's gone for 54. And Adrian, what's that?
52.
52. So if you just keep them held up for a second, you've gone for. So we've got 2 52s. Oh no, Nathan's gone for 54.
52 and 54.
And Tommy, you've gone for 70. The answer is 67. So Nathan gets the points.
And I get a point.
Yes.
Oh, you've gone bust with 70.
What about I got no.
Oh, sorry,
52.
Tommy went. Sorry, you went 52.
Tommy's
sorry,
close.
Nate gets the points. Adrian, you were second closest.
What I get? 3 points. Back in the game.
2 points.
Oh.
And then 1 for Adrian. So just go through those answers. The number of players allowed on the pitch at any one time in Aussie rules is 18. The number of points clear.
That's not right.
9 aside.
That's a joke, man.
I meant one team.
Oh, come on.
Fair enough.
You said on a pitch, like. No.
I took it as one team. No, I took it as one team.
We're going to crack on. I can only go.
Somehow got 54. I got 70.
I can only.
Well, you battled it, Tommy.
I can only answer with the numbers that are in front of me.
Battle job.
This is a disgrace, lads.
The number of points clear of second place in the Premier League, Liverpool are
15.
22.
20.
25. The number that LeBron wears, 23. And then the number of All-Ireland medals Dessie won as a player is 1.
1.
So that brings it to 67, the final total.
Yeah.
So Nathan, you are now on 2 points after that round.
Yes.
Adrian, you were on 4. And Tommy, you were on 3. So it is quite.
How did you get a number so low, lads?
What was LeBron's number?
23.
I've gone for 14 for LeBron.
I got that, yeah. I undershot Liverpool's tally by 10, so that's where I went wrong.
Right.
So what was your AFL answer?
11.
Oh.
We're moving on to the final.
Tommy, you battled it. It's fine.
You did. Truly battled it. On to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Johnny Sextons from the Johnny Bravos. It is a no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with the person with the highest number of points. That is you, Adrian. Then on to the person in second. That is you, Tommy. And then on to the person in last. That's you, Nathan. If you get a question correct, I'll ask you another question and keep asking you questions until you get one wrong. Once you get a question wrong, I'll move on to the next person. And your incorrect answer also means a deduction of 1 point. What's so funny?
Sorry, I have a 6-year-old trying to take part in the crappy quiz.
Let him in. I actually completely missed that.
He asked a great question, which was, why is it so crappy? And I found it difficult to explain.
Well, has he been watching for the last 5 minutes?
No, well, Adrian Barry's language means that we can't let the kids watch.
I was just going to say, it's hard to explain that without using foul language.
It's true. It's very, very true. Right, we ready?
And by the way, can I just say, Nathan's tactics, like before we get into, I've got this 6-year-old looking to interrupt the quiz nonsense, like. He's trying to put me off my stride. But
well, I think this is going to be a fascinating one.
What have you done to your kids, Adrian?
I think, as we know, Adrian generally bottles it when we're in studio. When you're sitting beside him and you can put the pressure on. When you're not social distancing, that's when Adrian's at his weakest. But is he going to be a different man now? He's in the comforts of his own home.
Well, I am going to say that, like, your tactic has worked, and I will be going extremely easy on you in this round, Nathan. Anybody who brings their kids into play automatically gets an easy pass for me in this one. Right, Adrian, your 40 seconds starts now. Who won the Cheltenham Gold Cup last week?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and the answer is Red Rum.
No, album photo. Which NFL team is Tom Brady signed for, Tommy?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Correct. Name the West Brom manager.
Tony Mowbray.
Slaven Bilic. Nathan, name the Premier League Footballer of the Month for February.
Bruno Fernandes.
Correct. Who was Spurs manager immediately before Maurizio Pochettino?
Tim Sherwood.
Correct. Adam Ida plays for which club?
Norwich.
Correct. Where did the 2006 World Cup take place?
Germany.
Correct. In golf, who won last year's US Open?
Gary Woodland.
Correct. Erling Haaland is from which country?
Norway.
Time is up.
Here, lads.
Nathan Murphy goes on an absolute rampage. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nathan ends up on 8 points. Adrian, you end up on 3 points. Tommy, you end up on 3 points.
Family celebration about to start.
Incredible. Enjoy the celebrations, Nathan. The first remote crafty quiz. How are you going to celebrate?
Well, I'll probably, go outside the back and play football with my kids for 5 minutes before they kill each other, and maybe watch some Peppa Pig.
Oh, the sweet taste that spoils the victory right there.
I don't know if I have a bottle of champagne. Maybe there's a bottle of champagne somewhere. I was out of alcohol. I'll tell you how desperate things got a little bit earlier in the week. I went down to the shop. I went down to the local butchers because we've got to support local right now. So I went to the butchers and stocked up for a few days. And then I realised, you know what? There's no wine in the house, and it's medicinal. I think it's fair to say at this stage to just have a glass of wine in the evening just to relax yourself. And this 20-year-old behind the counter takes the bottles of wines off me with his bare hands, handling them. So I had my gloves on. I walk home and I got my wife to get the the wipes out, and we wiped down the bottles of wine. Just
this story going to end anytime soon.
For consumption. That's why I can't let my kids watch.
Jeez, that story went on forever. Good story though, Nathan. Well done.
Thank you for sharing with us, Nathan. We really appreciate it at this difficult time. Listen, crappy quiz might be back sooner than last time. It's been a long 5 months. Tommy, you want to say one last thing?
Can we actually keep a leaderboard in it?
Sure, why not? Let's do a leaderboard. I don't care. So Nathan, you're on top of the leaderboard. Well done. Enjoy the sport victory. See you next time.
Yes. Did you know the last time there was a global pandemic?
Say that again?
Did you know that the last time there was a global pandemic was 1951?
Well, actually, I got the pandemic last time there was one, so I was actually kind of around for it. Listen, next time, tweet us at Off the Ball if you've got any questions. We won't get your postcards. Adrian, Nathan, Tommy, cheers. Congrats, Nathan.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.